Hello. Hi, Roses Wild. Um, hello. Don't know. Is this working very well? Not so much. I don't know. I don't know how well you can hear me. I'm trying out the AirPods because my family's going to drive me absolutely crazy with their stomping and just, instead of closing things, just slamming things. And by family, I mean mainly the men in my family. But yeah, I don't know if you can hear me really well. I There are a couple of topics that came up across my algorithms on YouTube, just in life, etc. That I was like kind of getting the urge to talk about. Argentina being one thing. It is a news story that I haven't really seen that much coverage for. I was kind of surprised. Argentina, of course, we're going to go over Blake Lively's PGA letter. I know it's old news, but I think it's still crazy. That letter is still crazy to me. And the Tyra Banks, America's Next Top Model, the Netflix documentary that was not produced by Tyra. Um, Manuel, I don't know. And Miss J, they no Nigel Barker. They said no, it was definitely not. She was not involved in it. I only watched an episode and a half of it. I didn't know it was like multiple episodes, and I wasn't rushing to see it. But I have thoughts, like personal experience thoughts, not in modeling. And then just like as a watcher back then, and then also watching this documentary now. But yeah, I saw basically up to when it blew up. So up to, for anyone who's seen it, up to Shandy's story, including that. And um what else did I put on here? Oh my gosh, where's my little thing? Oscar movies we'll talk about. It's really kind of like a hangout session. And I want to make an actual video, or if this works, I'll just cut it out and put it as an actual video, like a very short catch up for people like It's Keisha, which I was seeing one of her videos regarding the Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni um, case, I guess. And she was not really informed on it and getting some things a little not wrong, but I was kind of surprised that she was like having opinions. She usually like researches and things. It was on the uncut version, so maybe that's why. But I'm like, I think a lot of people, as this is speeding up, this is becoming more um, of a real news story, I guess, for the media as we get closer to the trial. More people might get into it and might not really have good ideas about what it is. And the Bad Bunny halftime show, which I forgot to talk about last week, or yeah, right? Did I think I was here last week. And I really want to talk about it. Nah. I mean, it's been talked about. I'm not Puerto Rican, so I'm not going to talk about like what does this mean and blah blah blah. There's plenty of people. Check them out. But and I'll maybe include the links that I have seen myself and loved. I just saw today someone covering the dance styles that were included in the show and explaining like the history and like the significance of them and like why they were put when they were put and all the stuff. So you have everything. It's awesome. And like how awesome is it that that can happen in a time where I think now is a time when we do have more of those conversations and more of those interests. We like are able to know more, and so we're excited to learn. But it's such an interesting contrast to like America's Next Time Model. So like maybe not now, but like in the past, movies, shows, cultural moments were more ingested without maybe sometimes having more significance than we would question. But now we're all excited to learn more. And for an artist to be able to put that much thought into it is so cool. So things like that. Let me pull up my little thing. Oh, and then Peter Thomas Ross skincare. That was a very random video that I saw from Hyram's, and I'll link it below. But he did a video covering a couple of emails or a few emails in the Epstein files released by, is it not the DOJ? Is it whatever, our government? This is this is what you'll get. I am not a lawyer. I am not a politician. I'm not. I'm just like really, person next door. But that is interested to learn, especially this year. I want to learn more. So even though this, like, I was also watching Spidey, the guy who talks about um, body language, but like real stuff, not, you know, crappy people out there that are like, oh, well, they paused on this word, so it means this for sure, and blah blah blah. And I love him so much. I wish that he would do like so much more. I wish like we could have a little Spidey, little mini Spidey with us all the time because he is so realistic, so real, so good at it. And so nice too, seemingly. I don't know him personally. And yeah, and he's so passionate about it. But I was watching his video on Epstein's, he doesn't even know if it was an interview or interview prep or documentary, like whatever it was. Um, it's in that was interesting. That was interesting. I don't know where he got that from. So I've not been involved in like uncovering and reading and diving into the Epstein things. Um, and yeah, so I'm gonna lightly cover it, I guess, the skincare thing, because I thought that was interesting. That was interesting. And it's more so kind of like everything that I cover on here, everything that I talk about on here, I think is more about like my curiosity of humanity and how we like perceive things, or how things look, or could they be misrepresented or misinterpreted, or what does it say about us, or can we look at it with another lens outside of the box type of thing. So that's why that fascinated me, especially that particular video versus I know Lauren talked about Melissa Nathan being mentioned in the files, and that's more straightforward to me. And it didn't really like spark anything in me like, oh yeah, I can talk about this. I'm curious about, exploring this more. Eh, I don't know. So, anyways, um, Ken's just put out a video about Homeland Security has subpoenaed, yeah, yep, Google and other social media platforms to get information on accounts that talk about anti-ICE topics. Yeah, well, we won't be talking about ICE right now. Have I talked about ICE? I did see that yesterday too. I saw it on Instagram. And funny enough, afterwards, I went to WhatsApp. My friend sent me a private like picture or whatever, because she just woke up. So, so she thinks, she's like, you don't need this to save to your phone or whatever. But yeah, and yeah, like it was saying that my screen was like recording. I had screen recording on, and so I wasn't able to see her picture. And I was like, that is really weird. And I don't know if you're familiar, if you guys use iPhones, but like at the top, like on the iPhone here on the top, um, if you go to another app, the previous app sort of stays active sometimes, and you can click on it in the corner, and it's an Instagram. So I'm like, it's Instagram recording my screen? What the heck? And having just read that, your brain goes into like conspiracy theory type of stuff, and not necessarily false conspiracy theory, not necessarily true conspiracy theory, but it makes your brain starts to like wonder, why is this happening? What the heck? Because I rarely have ever, since I've had iPhones, screen recorded. Screenshot, sure. I wouldn't screenshot, my friend's picture or anything like that. But like posts or whatever, sometimes I'm like, oh, I can save this to Instagram, but will I remember to look back? It's just going to be over there. I really like it, there's like a outfit that I like, or a recipe, or who knows, or a quote or something. So I screenshot stuff like that or whatever. But yeah, so I like that Kansas is like doing that stuff. That's cool. But yeah, like it is something that I thought of really when Trump was elected the first time, because of how he presented himself and how his voters presented themselves, and like the vibe around the whole thing made me think of the Romania, my not even ancestors. I don't think it goes that back. I don't know what was before my great grandparents, but the Romania that my family grew up in and lived in, and the surveillance, and that you can't speak against the government, and all these things that are still happening in so many other countries right now. And so that's why, like, initially I was speaking very uh, loudly at that time on, like, in social media, but then I stopped. And I had like Romanian family friends that said, like, you shouldn't talk about this stuff online. And I was acutely aware of that anyways. But at that point, if we really felt like we were a safe democracy and all that stuff. Although I think it was a Trevor Noah and oh, what's his name? I can't believe I forget his name. Oh my gosh. Not Jay Shetty. Why Jay Shetty came to mind, I have no idea. Uh, the Daily Show guy, the white-haired Daily Show guy, Jon Stewart. I think Jon Stewart was on Trevor's podcast or vice versa or something. I don't know, but they were talking about how um, Trump kind of illuminated how the American democracy was not very much a democracy. Um, but at that time it felt very much that. And I think it was. I think um, one of so about Argentina, I'm not that very familiar with what's going on in the details. I know a light version of it. The thing that I wanted to talk about there, that basically is this as well. It's like just men in power. So I'll leave it at that for now. But yeah, um, I in other like videos, I've talked about things because I couldn't help myself, because it was like we need to like inform ourselves of these situations. And I am not the person that feels very comfortable to do much more than what I've done. And even that was uncomfortable because exactly of things like this. I feel like it's interesting because I feel like that's already happening. I feel like they already have that access. Um, not even directly, but like I think we can. I think anyone can just like search by topic with like tools that are more advanced than, free stuff. But maybe I'm wrong. But yeah, this is the time we're living on. Well, I wish it was on, but no, we're in it. I think it's definitely scary, but I think it's frustrating more than anything. Because when I think of like humanity as a whole, and like remove my personal ego and my personal self out of it, and what will happen to us, this generation, and all this stuff, and individual people, I just I think I just get frustrated at the arc of humanity, that instead of like evolving and being good and better and stronger, we are like crashing back down. And it's stupid. I just think it's stupid. Now we like let's get a little bit of this Tyra Banks and then the politics of what's happening in the world together in one room, metaphorically. Already lost like I don't know 5 people watching. I was at 7, now I'm at 2. But we put so much of our anger, and we highlight how wrong Tyra was, how wrong, you know, the production, the reality shows are, all these things. We keep highlighting that. And it is kind of crazy that we don't use the same stuff to just go right here in things that really affect us every day, meaning the political like world, the mayor, governor, representatives, presidents, the homeland security people, all these different people that are affecting our actual lives. And we don't have the same judgment and awareness and critical thinking. Well, anyways, um, I just saw Lauren's like individual video that she was talking about how they were going to be on live and talking more politically. Um, yeah, I mean, it's scary to watch it. It's scary to be associated with it. It's scary to like, to save a video or an Instagram post or a Facebook post or whatever. It's scary to spend too many seconds on it because that can be tracked. Um, it's it's scary to do that, to be like an observer. And it's also scary to be the person or the people that talk about things, that highlight, that reshare, um that do all the more active parts of it. And then you have, even further, like calling representatives, going voting, or um protesting, or things that are even more directly so. um it is kind of such a tipping point at the same time, where if the people, and I'm not doing much because I'm scared, but if the people that are aware and able to understand what is happening and where we're going, if we don't get this country safe and get this country flourishing and all this stuff, if we all back up because we're all scared, we will all be in danger. And so that's like such a catch 22. Yeah. I don't even know how that can be solved. And then you think like, well, how many people would it take to be realistic enough and to think critically enough and to be active enough and understand and whatever, to not cause that tipping point to go bad. um I guess I don't know. I guess I'll start, since this is, I guess, naturally the topic that happened. I guess I'll start with the Argentina part. So again, I don't really know too much. I watched a video. There's this guy online, Secular Talk, I think his name or his channel is. and I was told about it, and I haven't watched him much, and which is really kind of interesting on its own that you haven't heard enough, or have not heard. I hadn't heard until I think, I don't know, today or yesterday he posted about this or something. And then when I went to like YouTube, different sources that I would like to listen to more, let's say, because I don't like his delivery. His delivery was just like, oh, basically they just want slavery and blah, blah, blah. It's like, okay, cool. You're just using buzzwords. I'm not saying he's wrong. I'm not saying he's right. He's kind of right. But like I'm just saying I just don't like watching that stuff. I don't like people that just incite emotion for just inciting emotion's sake, and not. I like my NPRs. I like my. I actually was trying to find BBC covering this. I ended up on Al Jazeera. That was the only other video that was covering it, and that was like really like so straightforward, simple, to the point, effective, educational. Yeah. And then I watched this other video about a month ago, I think. I forget who did it. The what is it? That basically was covering a different topic, but it was like the predecessor, whatever topic, to what's going on now. So, um, excuse me, hold on. All right. The infographics show real reason for the $20 billion US gave to Argentina as a bailout, basically. Did you know that? That sounds big. And in the video was, I didn't even finish the video actually, but one of the things that they were saying is that it was it, I forget, something with five, either like 5 years or 500,000 or something food stamps that money would cover. Probably like maybe 5 years, 500,000 a year. I don't know. It sounds like a lot, 20 billion. So why did US give Argentina that money? And so they go into that. But basically, there's some protests happening in Argentina, and um, I'm not interested in the pyrotechnics of the protest, because that's kind of what's being shown in shorts, and even in secular talks video. That was, I think that's how it started or something. I'm not really interested in that, because okay, whatever, I'm kind of over showcasing whether a protest is violent or not, because we know it can be a gray line, right? It can be a gray area of why that turned violent. Did it start that way? Who started it, etc.? I don't care. And also, in general, I don't care. I care more about like why. Why did this start? Why is this happening? Why are people protesting? So basically, Argentinians are protesting this kind of almost like emergency session for a law to be made. And I'm sorry if I get this wrong. But there's a law that this new president, I think he's the president, Milei or Millet, because Americans pronouncing things like I don't really know. Millet, I think. Oh well, 10 Argentinian men ideas on Pinterest. This is like a nine worst types of Argentine men. What is this? That's not what I typed in. But anyways, so this president or whoever, yeah, Javier Milei with M-I, not M-E. But he's trying to pass this new law or something, making it easier for companies to fire people, basically things like that. Um, I would pull up the Al Jazeera video, but for many reasons that might be taken down or something. So um, let me go and just see what they said. Because again, that was like the easiest thing. So the government is now in extraordinary sessions, special sessions in Congress, where it is hoping to pass a labor reform bill. Sorry, that most of the people here are opposed to. They say that if this law passes, it would be like going back in time to the 19th century. The benefits that labor workers of Argentina have today would be mainly or largely taken away. Um, mhm. Yeah, he's trying to make it more flexible to hire people, to lay them off, working hours and vacation to be, more flexible to arrange. They have, I guess, some really good, strong labor protections for the people right now. So trying to basically kind of Americanize it, kind of make it more um less life work balance, let's say. um or like, because for example, I had a friend who had a child recently, and I asked a totally different question, but she understood, like, why don't you work part-time? I asked, like, do they let you work part-time from home? But her understanding of no, I can't work part-time because like the bills went up having our child, and then they also bought a house and all these things. And I literally today, unrelated, was thinking about how, isn't that messed up? Isn't that like, why are we working so hard? Why are we working so hard to maintain the laws that we have that guarantee this, that we're not reforming the situation? Why are we working so hard to protect politicians and people and companies and all these entities that keep us stuck here to where we can't really live? They just like kind of suck our productivity out in exchange for less time in our lives, to ourselves, to our children, to the next generation, to our families, etc. And then we just die. So, yeah. But yeah, so in Argentina, basically, they're trying to kind of make this more of a reality than what I'm guessing is similar more to like European countries like France, who have better and safer labor. Um, make it easier for severance pay to like be, I don't know, lessened or whatever, to change things like that. So that's kind of what is happening. That's where we're picking off. And then um picking off, is that a picking up off? I don't know what I'm trying to say. And then sorry, the infographics show video basically talks about, it was in December 2025 Maine. It talks about this bailout and how, basically repeating a few times, like the bailout, Argentina is in no dire urgency to like need this bailout. So what's going on? And just kind of like, was it Venezuela? Colombia? I'm sorry. It will sound as ignorant as I've become over the years. But the thing that just happened where, they took the president out, but then put his vice president. So there was no real change, no real better life for the people in that country. But it was just kind of more interest, American interest. I'm also, again, I keep clicking on these Bad Bunny videos and, learning more about Puerto Rico and stuff. And, the the idea that stuck out to me in one of the videos, the simple idea of these people are governed by a government that they can't vote. So things like that. But anyway, so the bailout is in this video they were saying that it's basically looking like it's just political. This guy, I don't even know his name, uh took out a loan or some, I don't know, some, big corporate guy lost money, and then he knew someone um who in the government or something. I don't know who these people are, but basically, yeah, it's self-interest of, sorry, I have like I have paper towels for, poop happens moments. um yeah, I don't remember. I really was just watching this video, not trying to remember everything. But there was a guy, he lost money. Then this bailout would save him money because it was some sort of deal with, I don't know, an Argentinian company or something. I don't know. I'm pretty sure I got that very wrong, but 5% of that is right. And then, further in the video, it talks about this Millet guy who was losing. He wasn't very popular, but someone here really loves him. The same person who, you know, got the other president. And so basically, the thing that I really kind of wanted to talk about, besides like, hey, yeah, this is kind of what's up, very, very tiny little nutshell information on it. It gave me this, mm, not sensation, because sensation is more subjective, but this view suddenly that it just became more tangible and overwhelming, that the world right now is increasingly, not that it hasn't been as much before. I don't think it's been that much before because countries were more individualized entities. And with globalization, the plus side of that is uh, humanity has been able to flourish more. Where there's more people, the power increases, the efficiency increases, the knowledge increases, everything increases exponentially, not just like by one. And we're kind of wasting in wasting the opportunity globalization is giving us, and we're making not a mockery of it, but we're making like all we're doing it in all the wrong ways, because we've mainly had this system that was the same system that gave us slavery and colonizations, and you know annihilated so many people, native people from this or these continents of America. And yeah. But like, I don't know. It just became again more stupid, and I became less enthusiastic. Not that I was at all, but I became not. I don't know. Just very fed up with really seeing any positive story about men in power. Like, I'm just kind of over that. I'm not saying women would do better. I'm not really saying this is a gender issue. I think it kind of is, but I think it's just the society that we are that is like winning on top of, it's like the bad guys are winning when, good guys finish last, is kind of what we're self self-fulfilling prophecy right now. um yeah, and I do think that it has to do a little bit with gender, as far as how we raise genders to be. I don't think that it has necessarily to do with biology and genetics, like the actual, if you take men and women born away from society, how they would turn up. I think it's very, very difficult to prove at this point that it is genetic. Oh, men are like this, or because of men. But I'm talking about more like the gender of men rather than the sex of male, if that makes sense. Um, and yeah, and it kind of looked like it's just a bunch of buddies that are just like borrowing money from each other, or like whatever, just swishing money around throughout the whole world, and power, and just toying. And like everyone is just not human. That all their humans that they are supposed to represent, but not only represent, support and be there for, because that's what the presidents and the kings and whoever leaders power or like responsibility is to be there for the people, not for themselves. But yeah, that's not happening. And it's not it so I'm really fed up of like the politics of it all, and like the societies, the thing, watching the stuff with Epstein too also made me think of that. Like all these like men, rich people, whatever you want to call it, these people that normalized certain things that shouldn't be normalized. And I'm not even talking about like the sexuality of it, things and all that, but like just they themselves stop being human, and it just becomes like this weird game. I was talking last time about the dinner game, Le Dîner de Con, or whatever, that movie, or the two movies. And it's like that on this like massive global scale. And like, where's evolution? Right? Where is like survival of the fittest? Why isn't that survival of the most intelligent, of the most good? Intelligence isn't really good or bad. Intelligence, I think, to me, is like how you process information, how you're able to process information, not necessarily your knowledge or the goodness, but generally intelligence, because you're able to like kind of think outside of yourself more. The more intelligent you are, you can like see things differently. I think it does lend, maybe, I don't know, that this is my opinion. It does lend to intelligent people being better, like good more. Um, but yeah, I don't know. It just, I don't know. I kind of lost my train of thought with that one, why I started down that road. But back to like just the whole thing, like I don't like, if I hear or see people, men in power, like my first instinct now is kind of like how people, I guess, view Justin Baldoni, like, oh, just because he's a man, I don't care, he's just bad automatically. And so I get that. I'm not going to like discredit it, like men that way, but like when you give me no stories, news stories like that, if you're in politics and a man and you're not proving that wrong, like actively proving that wrong, like Mamdani, Obama, um, yeah, I'm not gonna give you that much of my time and like emotional investment that you are good for humanity and for your people and for anything really. um and yeah, that's kind of just what I wanted to say. Hi. Scared for I haven't heard anything about Argentina. No idea why we were there. We went there to get him though. I think it's the same thing like with why we gave Argentina these $20 $20 billion. um it's kind of a loan, but this video was saying basically it's not because Argentina is highly, highly, highly unlikely to pay it back. So it's more like a gift money of $20 billion. In the thread that ties them together, what was Taylor Swift's golden thread or whatever? I don't know. Is because they're willing to be an extension of the US's needs. And by the US doesn't mean the people's needs, but it means the rich guys that are trying to get richer or stay rich, is kind of my interpretation. I might be wrong. And also, like, these are, people's theories that I'm also theorizing about. So, but yeah, so the same thing with that guy, because again, okay, yeah, dictator, bad guy, whatever, but the regime wasn't changed. Was it in Venezuela? I feel like it was Venezuela, Colombia. I don't know. But anyways, like the regime wasn't changed. It was just that his vice president was more likely to deal and to do what Trump wanted. And oil companies probably are, the end all. Not necessarily like just because Trump woke up that way, but he was doing it for his buddies in the oil industry. Um, Something like that happening here. It's very favorable for this Milei guy to be there, changing, making it difficult for people to have healthier and better lives in Argentina. But that doesn't matter because it's about money for these people that are kind of. It's almost also kind of like the Taylor Swift of it all. When there was an article recently, I feel like, about how she is detached from her own um, generation, from her. She doesn't have a community. She's like so detached because she's so rich and so powerful, and she can't be us. She can't understand so many things, just like vice versa. But like yeah. So even things that like look very serving are just by design that way. Like what else is she going to do? It's kind of like that is my understanding of both of these things. Um, but yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I just had like a chip on my shoulder, I guess, that I wanted to get that out of the way with this. Yeah, I'm sorry for the people who logged off as soon as they were like, I don't. I guess they were probably here more for the Justin Baldoni and Wake Lively of it all. I don't know, and I understand also like people not wanting to hear about this stuff or talk about this stuff, and I'm not, generally the most politically inclined watcher of things. I don't watch the news. I will never watch the news 24/7 like my family does, or so many people do, because it's just a cycle that repeats. You can watch it once a day and you'll still know everything. You can watch like an hour or two a day, and I'm pretty sure you'll know everything that you won't know any more than someone who watches literally like 8 hours plus a day of news. I'm literally talking all day kind of thing. But yeah, I don't even watch that much. I'm trying to stay in touch a little bit more. Like I said, listening to NPR and all these things that are not so triggering. And by triggering, I mean not like internal triggering, um, but me to trigger is what I should say. Because I do want to be informed and know things, but I don't want to do all that circus. So I get it, but I also wanted to talk about it. Well, I don't know. I thought it was important. Um, and even if it was just as self-centered as getting out the sentiment that I am tired of humanity going the wrong way because of some immature men that never outgrew boyhood, that think they're all that because they have all the money and power that they can like do whatever they want with us. Um, yeah, I don't know. uh, yeah, yeah, it's kind of hard because like we should know what's going on, because if we don't, that's the other part that I was the sentiment that I was getting from watching this Argentinian infographics, like I don't know, bailout story or whatever. Um, it's like the 1940s, but like on a more global scale. And that's kind of scary. And the first thing that pops into mind, and I don't even know how true this is, because I think it's actually false, that it's because we don't know history that we're repeating it. But I think it's like the wrong people know history, and the people who had enough power or were able to cultivate enough power, um, repeating the history that's convenient for them. And so, yeah, because the reason that I say this is this Milei guy, when he was campaigning, he won because the people were tired of being in debt. Like their inflation and is it inflation? Is so high. They're not inflation. Well, inflation, but like, what do you call it when like during the or after the pandemic, they were saying like America went to like 3% or 8% or 9% or something like that. Maybe it was inflation. I thought it was something else. Tied. They're tied together. And Argentina is like 200. They went from like 280 to like 212 or something. Yeah, recession. I think that's what I'm thinking about. Maybe I'm wrong in thinking about that, but that is the word that I'm thinking about. Thank you. um, so yeah, so this guy rose to power because of promises to get this desperate, these desperate people of this country um, out of debt, out of financial situations. Like, for example, one of the things that is interesting about Argentina that I learned from that video too, is that it, like, if you pay for a house, you pay in dollars. If you, other things are like in pesos. And so, like, people can't really afford housing and stuff because of that. Side note, did you know, like in Mexico City, there's a lot of like American um, digital nomads that are kind of raising prices for the locals, and kind of same thing, like they can't afford, the locals can't afford stuff there anymore because they come in with their dollars and things. I think that if you are going to go be a digital nomad and things like that, you should not overpay. That's what I think. If you want to live in another country that is like less than yours, you should pay to the same amount that an average person in that country can pay. So like save all your other money if that's what you want, or buy, I don't know, other things that are not going to do that. But we're not advanced humanity yet, and we might not get there. But anyways, so um oh yeah, so yeah, this guy Millet um won on these promises that very much you've heard in history books for the 40s Germany, and Trump did the same, and so many other like leaders in the world are doing the same. And so I think the wrong people learned history to an extent, and that shouldn't have, um because they will just repeat it and hurt other people. And the people who should learn and know and not repeat history and beware of, ooh, these promises sound very close to something we do not want, um, should have learned history. But I think it's not about learning history, just the facts of it. Although that's like, ooh, you hear it and it's like, ooh, wait, that doesn't sound good because it sounds like what these other people are promised. But when you're like in the situation when you're desperate and you're not doing so well, you can't afford to live, what are you going to do at the same time? So it's like, that's kind of the scary part. It's not just like, oh, I'm so tired of these men, uh but it's and having their like, because I'm like grouping like Epstein, and I'm also grouping like masonry, because that's what it makes me think of when I don't know anything about that. And I met someone part of that world, and I still don't know anything. I I don't know. Maybe because there was not much more than what I already knew. Um, I don't know, but yeah, like, but those types of things like secret societies and all this stuff, I'm like, just screw you. No offense to people that are good in those, because there are people that are good in those. Like this person that I met, I think is a very good person. um there are good people, but um the comment I had to like cross over to the Tyra thing, the comment I had about Tyra, and everyone's like outraged about Tyra Banks, is like, show me a person that is like innocent and good through and through, that made a huge impact on the world. Show me that. Show me that person. I don't think they exist. I think to get to the top, you are, maybe there's a 1% chance, but good people don't get there because you can't get there by being good. You have to, well, A, you can't, and B, um I think also almost all of us are not fully good. We all have our bad in us. We all have our like chips. We're not all perfectly polished. Um but I'm thinking like, because people take Obama, and I'm reading Michelle Obama's book, and I'm seeing his stuff, and that he posts, and I'm like, this guy's good. This guy's a good human being. But then I also hear people say, "Oh, but he did that and he did that," and I'm like, okay, but he's a good human being. So I guess I'm talking about like not just every person that's like doing bad. I'm just talking about like really bad people. That's who makes it to the top. Taylor Swift, Tyra Banks, um, Trump, Epstein, uh, all these people. Diddy. I don't know. Um, yeah, I don't know. Eminem, even. I think Eminem's different. Not different. Is interesting story, because I think I would put him in like a good people category. Not always, but I think lately he's a good person, and or like at his core, he was always like a good person. As far as like mm, maybe not all morals, but some morals. I think he was a good dad. I think at least what it shows and how his daughter talks about him. But he got famous because he was unique and good. But he didn't make it to the same top that like a Jay-Z or Diddy did. Um to I guess to make it to the top might not be that difficult, but to like sustain that, you can't be good. You can't be that innocent, that pure, that good. And so yeah, that's the other part of it too. I think it's like a humanity issue too. Yeah, what I've seen so far, um, but I also have heard like he did his stuff too. But yeah, I think he's good, and I think I was watching like a video of him about his story, and it involved, of course, Dr. Dre, and I think he also is good people. We see 50 Cent doing his documentary on Diddy, so there's people that they are not perfect, but they're good people. Um, I see this rise in not that in politics and in the world and in all that stuff. I don't know. Yeah, I'm just worried about all that stuff. I don't know. I didn't want to make it into like a huge detailed thing because I don't have notes on all of that. But yeah, I don't know. I'm over all those things. But yeah, and when I say I'm over it, I guess it's that feeling inside of anger, sadness, fear, that kind of combination. But anyways, I'm going to move into the Tyra Banks of it. And again, I watched part of this documentary. So I'm going to talk about these early days, the first 2, 3 seasons or something like that. Um, and yeah, I'll leave the Peter Thomas Roth thing at the end. But basically, yeah, that one's interesting. It's a short one, but we talked a lot about politics stuff. So let's switch gears to a little bit less politics. Um, collaborated. He collaborates, you mean, instead of collapsed? That's what I assume that you mean. Eminem helping new rappers and singers. Yeah, I hope so. Passing it on, how he was helped too so much. And yeah, I don't know. The thing, one, I've always loved Eminem. I also just recently in the last like 3 years, his daughter has her podcast, and she got pregnant, and she shared this clip with telling him, and I don't know. I don't know. I just love that, and I loved seeing that, and I think, yeah, and yeah, I don't know. I don't know. But I also think he's at his craft. He is really good. I've not heard someone be that melodic and rhythmic and like the vocabulary he uses and the way that I don't know. There's many rappers and I don't listen to rap that much. So I'm sure there's more people out there, but I think right from what I've seen, there's different strengths. That's his, and I don't know. I loved him. But anyways, Tyra Banks. Um I mean, I guess that this is about America's Next Top Model, not Tyra per se, at least so far in what I saw. But she's getting the headlines. I think Rihanna talks about him and then always so positive. Oh, I have not heard that. That's nice to hear. Um, so Tyra, or America's Next Top Model, started with Tyra's vision. She got together with this, oh gosh, what's his name? Mock is his last name, MOK. Already forgot his first name. And when they were playing the credits, I'm like, oh yeah, I remember seeing his name, but like, I don't know who really is like, oh yeah, the producers of the show, right? No. So background to my experience with America's Next Top Model, like as a viewer, I wasn't on it. I was not in the modeling world. I did go to Barbizon way back when. I don't know if that was like a national thing. Um, like in the 90s, I think it was popular. Maybe I'm wrong, but this modeling thing. And when we came here, I was definitely skinny. So, because I was European, so yeah, we came here with like skinny. And that's also why, like, I was talking to my friend about this. I think uh, it's interesting how people view weight and people's appearances and their own appearance based on where they grew up. And I love when people are able to be aware, but I think it's so hard to be aware of your bias based on where you live or you've lived for a long time, the culture around you that you assimilated, whether that's from birth or from like recent times. And if it's not from birth, if you moved, like that too, because there's most likely two different ones. And what I've seen is some people don't become aware of that, like my mom. She stayed in the but she came here when she was older, so she stayed in the aesthetics of and ideals of healthy and of good looking that she grew up with, which is skinny. Now I think the US, on the other hand, especially like the last 30, 20 years, went kind of the opposite way with the modeling industry. I think being maybe a kickoff, like no more skinny models, to like we don't want to see bones and all that stuff. And it still happens. I mean, they're not really hugely different, but it is a little bit better. At least like you and I type of ideals that we have of ourselves has diversified, because we have plus size models, we have other sizes models, we have more inclusivity, like skin colors and ethnicities and all this stuff. But I do think that because of this like swing to the other way as far as like body positivity, we went a little bit too much in thinking that we're healthy when we're not. So for example, I've talked about, so like I don't know if this is a trigger. I don't have EDs. So if you do, this is potentially a trigger. Sorry, I don't know if it is or it isn't, but just better safe than sorry. But I've talked about my own body journey that's always stagnating. So I came here when I was little. I was very skinny, but good. Okay. I felt healthy. I felt like I was healthy. I wasn't getting sick. I think that's kind of a huge one, too. Like if you are always sick, whether you're over or underweight or whatever, that's probably not a good sign. um and it was just how it was. Then I gained some weight in my teens, maybe 20s, and then I kind of lost a bunch because of just personal situation, like a lot, like unhealthily amount. In a year and a half, I lost about 20 pounds, and I was not overweight. And when I mean overweight, like I wasn't even close to being overweight. I'm 5'5" and I was like 132, 135 pounds my whole adulthood. I went down to 114. And it was interesting because this one girl in this show in the first season or second season was 5'10" and 114. And I was like, oh my gosh, what the heck? But anyways, because I think I was 115 actually. I looked sickly and bad. And I remember having a conversation with a previous friend and how she said, and I think I've spoken about this, how she said that I have body dysmorphia because I wasn't seeing my skinny self as healthy. I was like, mm, okay. The thing is, though, like my whole life I've been pretty healthily weighted by like medical standards, but also like I had like some chubbiness in my childhood and I had like some chubbiness that I found out was probably more in like inflammation in my adulthood. But like I should not be at under 120. I was like on the border there. And also because that was not my natural self. That wasn't even at my skinniest, that wasn't it. And you could see it. Like my ribs were showing. Like I did not look healthy. I did not look happy. I looked bad, and my proportions were off. My head was bigger than it should be for my body. Like so. Anyways, I'm like I'm not the delusional one, but okay. So I do think that the body positivity kind of swung the other way because um, I think technically I should be okay feeling, but I am medically literally like going back and forth between obesity and overweight. And so many people have told me like, what is apparently like I don't look that way. But I think because of the skewedness of the culture that we have here, just like Europeans have a skewed culture of not seeing their underweightness as a problem. So I like to be in a happy medium. I like to be healthy. I know that I'm okay, but not the most healthiest. I like my cholesterol is like higher, like it was over the line, but like low over the line still, but like that's not a good sign. So like, things like that need to change. But anyways, these girls did not have that problem. I think like later seasons they had plus models, but I didn't get to that part. So but anyways, so I remember watching the show. I also remember that it was different times. I remember my same friend who told me that I had body dysmorphia because I saw myself too skinny, um, which was a fact. And she loved this show. And she was very skinny and very judgmental of other people's bodies, other women's bodies. And yeah, I think that's interesting to me. Um, but it was different times. I looked at like Friends last year. I saw Friends for the first time, or I had seen episodes, but like straight through. Problematic jokes, problematic storylines, problematic viewpoints. Right? 90s, early 2000s. Yeah, I do give them grace in that sense because that was the worldview, just like we have our worldview now. And how I was talking about, if you're American, you have a certain connotation about what's healthy and what's not healthy, and what's overweight or what's not, what's underweight and what's not, versus someone from like Eastern Europe. Um, that's how we are constantly, we're always in that kind of like bubble. We don't know the bubble until we're out of it. So the bubble in those times was like, okay, yeah, like I don't remember thinking so and so was overweight because Janice was saying she's overweight because they were all pretty skinny. I don't remember how I felt about that. Eh, But what they were doing with the makeovers, putting the girls through what they were putting them through, and all this stuff, and the pain and torture, and just all that stuff. It was like that's reality TV. It was interesting, and I remember as a viewer, I was watching like, would I do that? Would I not do that? Things like that. Um, yeah. Um, so that's like my background. That's what I know of America's Next Top Model. I enjoyed it for a few seasons. I don't remember what seasons I watched, but probably I watched like 5 seasons at least. I don't know how many there were. Probably more than that. Probably closer to 7 seasons of it. And I liked it. I can't say that I was like virtuous and like, oh, this is crap. Like, oh my gosh, this is so wrong. I don't know better. I didn't revel in the girl's misery. I think I was just watching it for like, oh, what photo shoot ideas, and would I do that? That was, I think, what I saw it, the lens I saw it through. Um, and then I kind of just moved on with my life. But for these girls that lived it, it was a totally different reality, obviously, because some really messed up stuff happened. I think the biggest ones, because yeah, you can talk about body image and all these things, and I will talk about that. But like the the one that I think should have been objectively wrong was this girl Shandy and her storyline, which I guess initially aired in full and then was like edited, or maybe it didn't air, it was edited before it aired. Um, yeah, but that also, the lens of back then was different, unfortunately. Um, so yeah. Um, See YouTubers talk about Top Model, and they said some of the stuff that happened on the set shouldn't have happened. Yeah, I don't think I would be able to go through what the girls went through. I saw some of the season. Did you watch it recently or back then? I don't know how old you are, and you don't have to tell us. But just as far as like, have you seen it because of what's happening now, or did you see? I guess there was a resurgence in the 2020, in the pandemic year or years. I guess that's how this documentary even came to happen, because people began seeing it with a different lens of what's going on now, how we see things now, and like how wrong that was back then. Okay. Do you remember feeling or thinking anything of it back then? Um, yeah, I think for sure, especially like older people, I imagine maybe would have had a slightly more chance to like observe things. And I guess the point being is what the girls themselves went through is horrible, but also what it sort of created for generations to come as a result of what they were being exposed to through normalizing different behaviors and different things. That's kind of what I assume is going to overall be criticized in this documentary. Excuse me. I didn't like the pressure they had to go through, and that they were all beautiful. Yeah, I definitely like, so I didn't judge anyone for their body, but I definitely judge for their face. To me, always like beauty came in the face, and I think that I personally don't see everyone as beautiful. I don't see myself as beautiful all the time. It depends, and it's not just makeup. I had this conversation about makeup too, and actually, I had a note in here too, as far because this one girl also said about like confidence, how she became confident after her makeover, or so forth. And I was like, well, is that really confidence at that point? If you're changing yourself fundamentally, like you get, you know, your makeup turns you into someone that you are not. Um, is that confidence? Well, I think it's confidence if it changes you to a like someone who's like looking tired. Like, for actors, if they are doing a scene where they have to look ragged or like tired or, you know, really bad, and they're like, I'm fine with that. That's confidence. But if you're just using makeup or whatever to like look prettier to whatever standards we have at the time, that's not confidence. I mean, that is confidence, but it's like manufactured confidence. So that's my take on it. But yeah, I think I hope I'm realistic enough, just like how I was seeing my weight. I don't want to be super skinny. I don't want to be overweight either. And I have the same thing with like my visual, like my face. I've noticed when I'm happy and well rested, I can look pretty. When I'm not, I don't look pretty. I can look really ugly, honestly. And with makeup, I can also it can go the same way. Like sometimes makeup makes me look prettier, sometimes it makes me look worse or just not good. So, yeah, I don't even know why I started with that. Oh, yeah, because girls were beautiful. Yeah. I think I see some girls I can um not what's the word that I'm looking for? I don't know. I can see how some girls are beautiful more now than before, or like interesting. But yeah, like this girl Shandy, I think she's better looking now than back then. Or she had like different times that she looked, nice. But anyways, but yeah, that was like the whole thing. And I guess in also in some way that was kind of also the point of the show. So again, the show starts with explaining how this started, which was Tyra having this idea to show the behind the scenes of the modeling industry. I think like everything, especially the further it went, heightened version of it, although it might have been like not even because I think the modeling industry was like really rough to begin with. But I think for reality TV, we also get a bit more heightened at one point. But it was her. She got Miss J on board, who taught her how to walk at like 16, 17. And J Manuel or Manuel. I don't know. Sorry. I always, cause I hear it all like legat, like tied together. But he was her makeup artist. But he had like all these like he loved ads, like a lot. So he became the photography guy. And then at one point the show, I think the second season, the show not the producers, the network producers wanted um a good looking straight guy, white guy, even though I guess by racist standards, he's probably not technically white because apparently you just have to have some non-whiteness in you and then you're not white. That was another conversation that I think it was Trevor Noah and yeah, it was Trevor Noah and Jon Stewart talking about how was it them? I think so. How in like certain parts of Africa, Barack Obama would be a white president. So, yeah, it's crazy. I don't know. I'm glad that there's like more awareness of how stupid this race thing is and how man-made it is and how yeah, let's not do that. But anyways, so Um, they got they got Nigel Barker involved, I guess, in the second season as this token, straight white photographer guy. And he was also like calm, although Jay was calm too. I really loved all of them. I don't know. It's something about Jay always felt very uh grounded. Again, I don't remember too much the seasons that I watched, and I think I'll like probably not see it that way now when I will continue watching this. But in these first seasons and how he's talking and stuff, I still kind of got that feeling. So was Nigel. Nigel seemed like the most detached and like nice, honestly. Like he wasn't really there for drama making. It was interesting how at one point Jay was talking about how protective he felt of Tyra and Jay Manuel, not Miss J, and how that's how he got into this banter with Janice. So they didn't really talk about Janice. I guess she's coming out with her own documentary or whatever yet. But I mean, they suddenly she was just there, talked about, but she wasn't part of this documentary. But yeah, it started with Tyra. She got Miss J on. She got J Manuel on. Don't know yet, or maybe we won't know until the other documentary how Janice got involved in it. And then this mock executive producer. It was them two, and then they got the J's and. Um, at first, this documentary looks very aspirational, very nice, very yeah, very nice. So I was like, this is definitely different than what we see online. So obviously kept going. Um and then it kind of turns because even the girls that were interviewed in this documentary at first were talking how nice the experience was and how Tyra, what she was doing was aspirational and good and all that stuff. But then we get stories from a few contestants, like Ebony was one of them. She talks about how she did not feel the support that she felt she would get from also another Black um, model, Tyra, and her being an aspiring model. um, I think no one contested the show of her relationship with her partner and her being um, gay, and that was, I guess, treated okay. But like as far as like her skin was criticized. Um, I found out with this, I didn't know ashy was a bad term because when I came here in the US, I had friends that were Black and they would use that word all the time to describe like their skin that was very dry. And so I didn't know that was a bad word because I used that because at one point my skin got that dry last year. I think it was this year. I think last year, and I was like, yeah, I mean, yeah, it's yeah. But yeah, I guess that's bad. I'm gonna look that up. But she talked about how they use that word and how bad the connotation of that word is, and um, then also the double-edged sword because then they put her on this moisturizing routine, but then the girls, I mean, I don't know how much they were made, but it looked kind of manufactured as far as not that it didn't come from them, but the way that they were just hanging out on the couch and Giselle saying another one of the girls contestant girls how like can you please just like wipe your hands so it's not on the doorknobs whatever the moisturizer is and things like that and bald spots happen because they didn't know how to cut her hair. I think, yeah, bald spots one thing, but like the segment, the comments that were being made. slavery didn't, like, it ended a while ago, and there was another while ago that a lot of things did not end. Like, you know, but it felt like still this was in early 2000s, right, or something. It felt like in that clip, watching that clip, like that seemed like very close to the time when slavery ended. Like the comments that were being made by these hairdressers, there were like what, three of them around her trying to um like remove the, she had like a little bit of hair that was like just kind of on um just put on her what am I trying to say? Not put, like she had grown a little bit of hair, but she would like cut it. She wouldn't like let it grow too much, I guess. That was her thing. And Tyra was like, let's shave it all off. And so, yeah, but the comments, and I did, yeah, it did feel very, so two things, because Popcorn Planet is one of the videos that I saw, the only video that I saw so far talk about this, and talking about how like they couldn't hire hairdressers that knew how to cut black hair. And so I'm my questions are, was this on purpose? Because Tyra had said that when she came into the industry, like that was her experience. So was it on purpose to like give these girls that experience? Like, hey, like if you're black, you will probably have to deal with this. But then at the same time, the way that Tyra and all of them were explaining how the show was created and the purpose of the show being created, and what she was saying even at the time, it was more like, well, no, now you have an ally, and like the things that will be barriers to entry for these girls that I'm picking will, I'll like make those less or whatever. So in that sense, like, yeah, that doesn't make sense that you wouldn't hire hairdressers that knew how to like shave her head, you know? So I'm, the question's still floating there for me, as I like continue watching this. I don't know if that question's, the question will actually be answered, because I think it's does sound more like it was just um contradicting to what Tyra was saying that she was intending to do. At this point, that's what it sounds like more. Jay's a little mean when he talks to the girl, to the girls. Yeah, yeah. I think he was, to me, I guess it was like more grounded. Like he was, maybe realistic is what I meant to say to that time, but I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. He was definitely, like I said, Nigel, I think, was like the nicest. He was also like, he would barely really like get involved from what I remember, but I don't know. And then Miss J, I do like Miss J. Um, they were all critical, but yeah, I don't know. There was a scene later with this like psychic person, and I think it was the same girl, Shandy, that had like a breakdown from what that psychic told her, which I'm like, really, a psychic on the show? What a surprise that she knew exactly what to say. Okay. Um, but I think Miss J had a lot of like it looked like real empathy all the time with the girls. But I don't know. Again, I don't know. um, didn't really watch the show. Only seen a few episodes, so I can't speak if Tyra's behavior should be expected or not. Well, yeah, that's a good question of the day. People are saying, well, that's just Tyra. People are saying it's, yeah, I don't know. I I haven't seen anything. I haven't seen much to have an opinion on what everyone's talking about yet. So as far as like Tyra Banks, but I think Tyra's, she had, you can't just, I think one of the things that Romanians are more right than Americans is that there is such thing where you have to be realistic that just because you're talented, just because you're beautiful, just because this, that, or the other thing doesn't mean you'll make it. And whatever the other part is, it's usually some sort of help or you become vicious or both. Like, so I think there's that with Tyra too. Um, and you're also a product of your environment at the time. And I think about this with, this is so not uh excuse for anyone. I do think all the time of the people that like Blake Lively, excuse me, Blake Lively and all these people on the Epstein files and all this stuff where I don't know, I keep thinking like if you are around certain things that are just constantly around you, they do become normalized. And I think to an extent we can have strong morals and ethics. Those are kind of taught and not by being religious. Let me get that clear. Just you being religious does not guarantee morality or ethics in you. Um, Not even the least. But I think like those are taught. We also have some sense of like, I think, goodness when we're born, but yeah. So when you're like constantly surrounded by things that are not maybe up to your ethic or moral standard, or you don't even have that developed yet and you're surrounded by that, you get that normalized. And I think like with people like Tyra Banks, like if that's how she was treated all the time and that was normal, maybe she like stepped a little bit outside of that, but it was still normal. And when you get fame and you get like, ooh, you get good reviews, you get good ratings because you're being real girls or whatever, you're putting them through like really bad stuff, you get on that like machine. I don't know. And yeah, I think like ultimately maybe it came from like self-preservation. And yeah, I don't know. I don't know. Hi, April. Welcome. Um, I feel like the judges have to be judgy and point out the imperfections about modeling because all imperfections are pointed out in modeling, or at least used to be. Yeah. Yeah. The thing is, I guess, like, it is kind of like you have to make this like constant switch between, so far from what I've seen, is like there's this switch like, are we an aspirational show? Are we a show where we want to give more chances to people that don't usually have chances? Or are we a show that looks, it maybe had a crisis of identity, because on one hand, that's kind of what it sounded like they wanted to have. But on the other hand, the initial idea was showing just how the modeling world was behind the scenes, period. It wasn't like making it better. But probably along the way, it was like, well, we can't. Well, I think she was told that, like, you can't just do that. No one's going to watch that. You need to make it into a competition. You need to have some sort of stakes and things to it. So I think then, like, the branding became about doing giving like girls that wouldn't otherwise have opportunities. But then it was still rooted in this like very imperfect modeling world where, yeah, you will get really judged and really pointed out flaws, because flaws were subjective. Because I don't know, but to me, like, some of the girls that were just literally just skin and bones, to me that's a flaw, but to Janice that was not. Um, so things like that. So I think yeah, there's part of that. But maybe that's like where it was got confusing because it's like which one do you want to be? Do you want to be, how everyone is in the modeling world and show how nasty and awful it is, or do you want to be the aspirational and trying to be both? Kind of sucks, I guess. I don't know. So then we have, so yeah, so that was like kind of the beginnings, and also Ebony, um who has like amazing hair now. And she's like beautiful. It was interesting how some of these girls changed over the years. I feel like Ebony is just has stayed gorgeous. I like her personality, and I actually started following her, right, like I just went to Instagram and followed her. I guess she's like, I don't know, an entrepreneur of some sort, like teaching fitness, and I think modeling is still in her thing and things like that. Anyways, Giselle, I didn't really catch the huge storyline with her besides that she she tried to self promote herself as the show came out, and no one responded to that. None of the agents or agencies, because they saw her as just a reality TV personality, nothing more. And also, the show showcasing her lack of confidence also didn't help. That's at least in her words. But yeah, besides that, part of asking Emily to, like, wipe her hands after she moisturizes, and that I didn't see too much. I don't remember much of her story. But anyways, I don't even think I for sure didn't watch their season. Maybe I came in season 3 or something. But anyways, then season 2 started. Um I almost put this note and then I retracted it because I don't think they're the same. But sometimes Tyra in interviews on talk shows reminded me of Blake Lively sometimes. But she has a lot more personality than Blake Lively. Yeah. she, she does not need a Ryan Reynolds. She can be her own self. And but yeah, so Janice was the mean one, and there was a clip where I it was noticeable that Tara was kind of bothered by Janice calling a model fat, because it was like wide, and it was at the same time it wasn't like cut and pasted. But you can definitely see on Tyra like the frustration. So I think there was part of that, with her. I wonder if it kind of got lost because the show became popular and it was like, all right, just drunk on the fame. I know people are saying like, well, Tyra was always like this. And that's the other part too, is like, I'll talk about it when the Shandy thing comes. But anyways, so Jay was noticing this because they were like sleeping over at each other's places all the time and talking and just very much bonded. And so he became protected of Tyra and started talking back to Janice because Tyra was like, just let it go, whatever. And that's all I have for that. Again, I wish that I could remember better my impressions. I wish I would have seen the show even in 2020. I don't know, it like got a resurgence. I did not do what most people did in 2020. I don't know. I started walking a lot, and we got a dog, and yeah, I don't know. But anyways, um Nigel Barker came on, definitely good looking and charming. And oh, okay. And then they went to Milan. Before going to Milan, they started these like trips. They have their own studio now. The first one was like in a hotel. Like the hotel room was the the studio, the judging room, and then also the suite or whatever was where the girls were staying the first season. And then the second season, they had like, I don't know, a rented house or something, and studio set. So that changed. And then, yeah, this is where one of the girls, I think it was Shandy, saying that she was feeling pretty. So she got confidence. And I'm like, huh, just talking about that the other day. And so, but I already talked about that. Uh, and then the psychic intuitive person came on. And just as a side note, because this is like a personal arena moment right now. I believe that there are people with psychic abilities because I've not seen proof of otherwise. I've not seen proof of it either. Like, I think that kind of innocent until proven guilty, possible until proven impossible. So I believe that. I also was very spiritual. I grew up not really religious, but religious. My dad is definitely like spiritual religious, not so much religious as spiritual, and so more open minded. And so I grew up with that kind of feeling around spirituality and religion, but kind of around the same area. And I, in college, definitely completely switched to like spirituality, no religion. But don't know if I've talked about that. Not the time right now. I'm just trying to give you like a nutshell. And I have kind of, sometimes I do talk about vibes and energy and people's energy and stuff. Not so much about auras. I can't see auras. I don't know if people see auras. It's possible. I believe in Reiki, but I also have had a bad, horrible Reiki experience. Not horrible. I had a friend who had a very horrible one, who it sounded less like Reiki and more like, I don't know, something else. um, and I've had a good one and I've had like a nothing happened. Same thing with acupuncture. Acupuncture is a bit less like, ooh, it's like more literal, you know. I had like underwhelming experiences at like a clinic, like a big clinic, and I had amazing experience at this like independent acupuncturist. Um, so yeah, I believe that kind of stuff in a way. I also believe a lot of people will use people. So when it comes to like psychics, I don't believe that everyone, or maybe not even nearly everyone, that calls themselves a psychic is one. I also, I also think of more like, do you, speaking of energy, do you give good energy or not? And I've not seen anyone who calls themselves that to have actual good energy, like really good soul type of stuff. Um, but I think on these shows, especially, I don't know. I just never buy it. I just kind of roll my eyes because it's like you're on a show. You gave your show so much information about yourself. The producers now, you know, I'm not saying what I thought about then, but I'm saying like what I think now. Um, and yeah, I like you give so much. Your producers like talk so much with you. They ask questions. They probe all this stuff. So yeah, they knew. I'm pretty sure they gave that information to this psychic intuitive person, about how like I forget what it even was, something about her parents, I think, not being there for her, not being supportive in general in life. She had to leave at 18, all this stuff. So Yeah, but yeah, I just kind of how I talked about Argentina and the bone to pick with that one, and with like men in power, and I'm not even talking about politics. I'm talking about just like men running this world as a world, not even a country. Um, this is also kind of a side note bone to pick with like people and calling themselves psychics and being psychics. And I also think there's some really not just because you're a psychic or someone who is more present, intuitive. What's the other word? Mentalist that Spidey uses, things like that, where you're like able to pick up on things more than the average person because you've been trained to, because you trained yourself to, because you're born that way, whatever reason. Um, it bothers me when people don't evolve themselves as much as they focus on that skill or power or whatever. Because doing that and promoting yourself as that, but you're not doing self work yourself, you're not going to do very good. You're not going to be very supportive of those people's growth because you're limited by what you know and who you are. And I've seen immaturity um, in someone who, you know, in people who want to like do good, but they're not, I think, able to do that much good because they have their roadblocks to themselves. I don't know. Anyways, bone to pick. Back to Tyra and America's Next Top Model. So Milan, they fly out. They go to these go sees or whatever they're called, and there's like, girls get a moped guy. Oh, side note, I was watching Luca on, I think it was Disney, and Vespa was like the star of the show. Anyways, so it's a cartoon movie. And Yeah, so these moped guys get invited by producers afterward. I'm guessing they didn't say by producers, but the way that it was phrased, it sounded like that. And they get drunk. Shandy, being like the main person, will follow through the story. She was saying that she barely had anything to eat or drink that whole day, and it was just like go, go, go to these go sees. She also revealed that she had struggled with EDs, scenario at that time too. And so these like guys get in the hot tub, blah blah blah. She gets flirty, and quickly she starts blacking out as things progress past that. And I had someone tell me a story about their friend having this experience. I guess and at that point I wasn't drinking at all. I don't like drinking, I don't like alcohol, but that definitely was like, ooh, for sure, not on a date or anything. But so yeah, it was a little kind of not the best storytelling at this point, or maybe it was. Depends on how you look at it. But basically, from the bathtub, it turned more than flirty. They went to the shower. All of this was filmed. Jay was saying that if you go to the bathroom by yourself, no cameras. If two people or more go to the bathroom, the cameras follow, which it's a very simplistic way to make sense of that, because like, yeah, like you're on this reality show, they document the whole of it and they edit it later. So in that sense, I don't I understand why they kept filming and stuff, and I also kind of understand why they didn't intervene. I don't think it's right as like a human, but I understand from the like just the show being an entity. That makes sense. That's what you're setting out to do. Boom. Now you can argue that, well, you're intervening when you have confessionals and producers are probing questions or whatever. Let me turn the heat down a little bit because it is getting up there. Um, so yeah. What was I saying? Yeah. So you could say that, and it's a very good argument. If you intervene to like incite things, including bringing these guys over, why would you not intervene to stop things? It is also, I didn't see the footage. I don't know if, again, like they even like had that footage seen by anyone but them before it aired. But this is me, I guess, maybe giving them too much benefit of the doubt because I'm like, can they tell it wasn't her choice, that she was blacking out, that she was not very conscious or whatever of what was going on? I assume that you can, but I also assume that you can't. I don't know. I'm not familiar with that territory that well, but it was unfortunately different times. Don't really, I think the context is important. I think we shouldn't do that. I don't think it's right. But I think back then, many things were done and we saw things differently. But it was an awful thing that happened in multiple ways. One, that it was happening, that she basically had this sexual experience with this guy that she didn't know, that was, I guess, partially up to her, but she was also drunk, so like how much did she actually consent, that now we know can, you know is different. And then also that it was filmed and kept being filmed. And yeah, it was clearly so tough for her to see, even like now it got to her, and it broke up her relationship as far as I could tell. I don't know if they got back together. I did wonder, like, what does that guy say now, about all of it? Ooh, low battery. Let me see if the thing can reach all the way here. It's a little closer, but I don't think it can. Ah, almost. Okay, cool. That's great. Yeah, my parakeets have not made an appearance. They've been going to bed really early. Arusha, please. Yeah. Anyways, um, so yeah, so it happened in the shower. It happened in the bed, and yeah, man. Um, the thing that was like annoying is like, the least to say, but this one girl, she woke up, realized what happened, or was told, or both, and she started crying and she was devastated. And this girl, to comfort her, said, "Don't let this take away your spirit." And there was something recent that bothered me with that same thing. And this idea, like, no, shut up. This does take away my spirit. Like, Blake Lively on a red carpet talking about how, like, we're not only, you know, the abused, like, we're like also the resilient. It's not only about Lily Bloom being someone who was abused and stuff. It's also about how resilient she is and all this stuff. I like that there's a trend now about resiliency being checked, that, you know, I see this more and more on memes and in things about um you're not necessarily being strong, you're just surviving. That doesn't make you stronger. And in some ways, it makes you weaker. If you deal with certain things, it makes you weaker. It makes your immune system weaker. It makes your nervous system weaker. It makes your like mental state, emotional states weaker to certain things or just in general. Like it doesn't always have to all of it and the same, but like it can just because you went through like tough stuff does not mean that you're stronger. It just means that you survived it. And if you had, coping mechanisms that you knew how to put in place, maybe you made the best out of it. But you just having scars, you still have scars. It still scarred you. And I always kind of never, I didn't really, I think, ever understood that, since I was little, if maybe not little, but like whenever this kind of notion started. And this idea, like, no, if you suffer something, if you're put through something, you don't enjoy good things more. To me, that always seemed like BS people tell themselves to keep going. And like by all means, we need to tell ourselves whatever to keep going. But not we shouldn't say that or do that to keep doing bad things or excuse bad things and not stop them is all that I'm saying. Yeah. So yeah, that kind of got to me. Like don't let this take away your spirit. Like, how about you don't dismiss her? You know, I think that also changed a bit more when I learned about attachment styles and about like dismissive, and not just attachment styles, but that one psychologist, Dr. Kirk Honda, that would cover and react to my 90 Day Fiance stuff, and who I started watching the single day, and that's I don't know. I like the show. I like it. I don't know. It's problematic in its own way. But he or like the attachment styles or both, I started learning about like dismissive language we use that we're not aware. We think we do it out of like goodness, out of care, and we do it out of care, but and goodness and like trying to be helpful, but it's actually dismissive. Like to actually be supportive of someone going through something like this, you sit with them, you cry with them, you like hold space, you say nothing if you have nothing. um but saying like, don't let it take away your spirit, you'll be okay, things like that are actually dismissive. They're never good to say, never good to say, but we're so used to saying those things. And I remember like personally having this like revelation with someone who like I was like really afraid of fireworks, and their response was it kind of like illuminated other things, but like their response was like, oh, but they're safe. It's like, they're not safe. And if you don't know that, like, you're not as old as you are. Like, fireworks are not safe. Don't dismiss reality, objective reality, and also don't dismiss me. If I'm afraid of something, if I have a phobia of something, like, be there, supportive. Don't just give me a towel to like wipe dishes or like say that. So, but again, it's well meaning, and I can like take it as such, like, oh, okay, I understand this person's like well meaning, that's how they coped, that's how they were taught to cope, that's how they were spoken to. And I was thinking about this too, like, why is it our generation tasked with breaking the cycle of stupid stuff that we're taught? Like, why couldn't my parents be that generation and me be happy and enjoy life and in relationships and relate better and have people relate better to me and we could all like live in a better world? Why do we have to go through that now? But I guess better late than never. Got a little sidetracked on that. The production should have stopped the question. She was asked this, Shandy was asked this, and she said yes, basically. Um, Should have, yes. Do I understand that they didn't? Yes. And it is not pretty. That's not a pretty answer. That's television. That's business. That's the point of why this is not working so well for us. This like capitalism or whatever you want to call it. Um, yeah. So um I don't know if I said it when I was talking about Argentina earlier, but I love globalization. However, not this way. Like, I love helping each other out, being like we're all human and how, humanity being there for itself, and we're not different. We're different and we're not at the same time. We're one species, but we have such diversity. And to help one another, yes, but a bailout just to help a small group of people, that's not helping each other for the goodness of humanity, mankind, humankind did that. Et cetera, et cetera. So, anyways, but back to this. Um, I think the mock guy, gosh, I need to like look up this guy's name because I've said his name too many times and I don't know. And also Jay Manuel were saying, I think both were saying that, you know, the girls were told all the time, like, hey, we're recording you 24/7. They knew all this. The idea was to document it all. I think especially at that time, um, who knew? Like there were not many, privacy concerns or whatever. Um, let's see, what's his name? What's your name? Ken. Ken Mock. Okay. So yeah. So do I blame them for keeping the cameras rolling? Not exactly, just because that's what I would expect. That's probably what was in the contract. That was the point. That's what they knew, etc. As a human being, and I loved how like the cameraman and the sound guy that filmed her telling all this to her boyfriend, they like stopped recording and said to her like, we're really sorry we had to film that. And so on a human level, good that they had that common sense, they had that sense. On a production level, yeah, that's, I feel like, the hard reality of reality shows is that they're not there for you, they're not there for your well-being. And the entity becomes greater than the humans in it, no matter what. So I did find it interesting that when Tyra was asked about this, when Jay even was asked about this, they were quite evasive. Tyra didn't seem like she remembered the incident, which in a way I don't blame her because there were so many seasons and whatevers, and life gets, a lot. It was very traumatic for that person, but Tyra was quite detached from that moment. Was it her decision? Was whose decision was it, etc.? No one was able to like say. I don't know if they probably won't say later. Maybe no one knew. Um, but it did like bother me how she reacted to it being interviewed now. However, what was worse, in my opinion, is that at that point, again, not so much about her like judging her in that particular time because of context is different than us watching it now and even her watching it now. But the next day she was basically prompted to talk about when she got cheated by some guy. And the way that she was talking about it was putting the cheater down, in this case Shandy, even though it was about a guy. but it was about the cheating. And when she specifically addressed Shandy, the idea was like we have to fight our carnal desires and other things. I don't know. That's all I wrote, but things like that. So again, putting her down, not really like, why did that happen? How did you feel? Because that also would have been great television, right? But she chose to take it into villainizing her. Not very different for that time, I think, but still not great, not good. And again, do I like judge Tyra for that Tyra or even now? Like, no. I kind of just take her as there's one of the contestants. Like that's just who she is. So it's just kind of well, that's who she is, and then that's it. Like to take it where you get upset about it, I don't know. I can't in this case yet. I don't know. I'm not, promoting Tyra. I'm not saying, oh yeah, I'm gonna support her or like good for her or whatever. Not at all. I think that was like really crappy to handle, especially that conversation was actually horrible. If she was triggered by cheating because she had the guy cheat on her, and so she got triggered to the point where she saw red and she didn't want to find any details in Shandy's story that would make her not be the villain because she needed the cheater to be the villain. That's possible. If it was just for TV's sake, that's possible. Yeah, so I don't know, but I didn't like that. It's not cool. Let's do better in the future, kind of thing. Because I guess that's like all that we can. But I think it also is something that, at least for me, gets complicated to take something that happened then that we know better now, some of us, and judge with our eyes and minds now is tricky. Just yeah. And that's even like with Blake Lively, I've felt that, like I can see through her perspective. It doesn't make it right. It's maddening in the moment. I will get on board and be like mad about whatever she does or whatever is happening. But like 10 years from now, 5 years from now, even like 2 years from now, or even less, like I can also accept that's her perspective and point of view, and it doesn't make her a good person. Um, but I guess like I do find humanity interesting in that sense. Like it's not just about right or wrong and good and bad. It's like just the experience of being human sometimes. I can still see something be bad and I can um not vilify it. I can condemn it more or less, but also seek and be interested and fascinated to understand it, if that makes any sense. So yeah. But that's kind of like that. Um oh, and then they had the girl call her boyfriend on camera to tell him that she cheated on him, and that was rough. That was rough. Um I think his response was not, I don't think it was misogynistic. I think it was just someone who did not want to be cheated on. But it sounded rough and it was bad. It was bad. Um on the other side, I was thinking like, "Oh my gosh, how often do we see this?" We saw like what we now know was Justin Timberlake faking that, but how often do we see a guy be upset, distraught about cheating? like in our society now, I think we kind of have almost that lens or expectation that guys are the cheaters and they're already cheating. So if you cheat on them, like they will get upset, but they will get upset more from an ego point of view rather than from a heart soul point of view, which doesn't sound like this guy. He sounded like real. He was crying. That's the other thing. Like guys don't often cry on reality shows, on shows, in movies. We have created this like really detrimental view um of guys reacting to being cheated on, or just the cheating culture as a whole, of like guys being just like whatever about it, or like more egotistical about it, like, oh, this is a an attack on my pride, like you made a mockery out of me, instead of like, oh my gosh, this hurts. And because he said something like we were going to be together forever and then you throw it away, like he was like for real. And I would love to see that more in our media, whether it's reality or not reality, or even commentary about things. I would love to see guys shown more humane than we've seen them, than we've shown them, and give them back their right to be human. Oh, it sounds so weird. Um, yeah, I think that's part of like the crisis that I was even talking about in the politics session at the beginning of this video. Like, it's not just about guys being in power, it's like the specific guys being in power. And uh, it's, if you've seen the movie Trump with Sebastian Stan, um you will get the idea of like, it's not someone who is confident getting in power and making, just everyone else's life miserable. It's someone who's trying to prove himself, is some guy who's like really being put down and not been allowed to be human. Like, you need to be tough, you need to not cry. I'm not saying about Trump necessarily, I'm saying like in general for guys, like you need to, the tough is be less human, and then use other people. Like, it's just like it all correlates. So for us to have less crap like in Argentina, like in the US, the stuff that, we're not going to talk about, like the cubes, being out in the streets, and like all the stuff, like, yeah, I mean, that alone, all those people, again, not everyone, but so many of those people that I are taking in and become that, hired into that or whatever, like it's, just guys that have not been allowed to be human. And yeah, I don't know, whatever. I'm not like really on top of my game, but that's also something that like made me think, that what I thought about when I was watching this segment. And this is kind of where I stopped watching. That was like quarter into episode 2 of this documentary. And then they started going into, I thought it was a good stopping point because they started going into like, oh, and then it blew up, all the seasons that come seemed like it was a new chapter. So this like first chapter of how it started, how America's Next Top Model started and all this stuff. And then that. Oh boy, why do I do this to myself? It is 2 hours in, and I've not gotten to the Blake Lively of it all. I think I can do. Um, I'll talk about the Oscar movies really quick, like really quick. Just to say that I did. I haven't seen many of them, so it's going to be quick, and then I'm gonna talk about Lively Baldoni. All right, so Oscar movies, new segment or whatever. Oscar movies. Like I said, I've not seen many. Um, I saw Frankenstein. I saw K-pop Demon Hunters. My friend asked me to, or told me like, "Oh, you should see it," for a long time before I did because I just didn't feel like it. I didn't. I have this aversion towards anime because in high school my friends were all into anime, and I associated anime with not having fun in real life. So yeah. Um, but I watched it and then I loved it, and it sparked again the music part of me, and yeah, just life. It was kind of a, not exactly a reset, but a respark of having life. I don't know. So I think that was awesome. Will it win? I hope so, but I don't think so. Frankenstein was another one that I watched. It was very classical in terms of not just a classical because it's a classic story, but like it was classical in uh, the movie style of it. It felt like a movie, like back in the day, sort of. And I don't know if it was because I watched it in so many sittings. I watched it, I think, in 4 or 5 parts, and I kept starting and watching it and all that. I don't know if that's the reason, or maybe just the story didn't really impress me that much in the end. It was too cheesy, too like, oh, it's been done. I mean, pun not intended, because literally that's been done, but also this type of story has been done. I was bored at the end of it. I did think it was like an interesting twist. Again, I've not again, but I've not seen or read Frankenstein before, so I was like, "Ooh, I did not expect that." I don't know if it's like new in this movie, but that was a twist I didn't see coming. While like the Frankenstein's monster or whatever found Frankenstein, and then yeah, so I gave it, I think, like 3 stars, 4 stars, because visually it was really nice. Acting was really nice. The story was pretty cool, but I just kind of got bored at the end of it. I'm like, don't care about this movie that much once I'm done and finished with watching it. Sinners, I saw in movie theaters. I've talked about that. I was not wowed. I felt like, well, this was a movie about like being a guy, basically written by a guy. I don't know exactly how to say it, but I know, I think I spoke about it in the review too. Like, yes, I understand it has like all these cultural not moments, symbolisms and all these things, but something about it made me feel very cold as far as like this is a guy's experience at the same time. Like I'm just kind of over that. I don't know. Um yeah. When a few years ago I was talking to someone who is a local director and stuff, and he's like, "Oh, I have an idea for this movie. It's like a passion project. I really want to make this movie one day." And what he described was like he thought this is what, like, I guess is what I'm trying to get to. It sounded like he thought that it was a universal human experience, question, purpose, dilemma, whatever, I forget. But like, it was like universal, and it was like all humans have this like journey in them, basically. And I was like, no, no. That's such a guy way to see it. And so that's kind of what Sinners, that's what I remember from Sinners. That's what I got. I liked, the visuals I remember, and it was interesting, and again there's the cultural parts, but like I can't get past that. I don't know, maybe I'm like delayed feminist over here. I'm tired of seeing just guy perspectives. I don't know. And sometimes you can't tell, but sometimes you can tell. And Yeah, I don't know. It just felt very self-indulgent guy wise. And the specific part that I felt that was at the end, spoiler alert, it's been out for like literally a year because it was like I think early 2025, right? Um but there's towards the end a part where the two twins I think are like like going at each other. And that's when I was like, "Oh my gosh, this is about this guy who wrote this. Like, this is something that he really felt was important to tell, and I'm like not into this." I don't know. I don't know. Anyways, I'm sure people will say like, "Oh, it wasn't about that, all that," but yeah, that's all I can think of. Elio, I saw that one. I don't even remember that one. Oh, it was about aliens. Okay. Um, it was cute. It's not something that I would watch again. But it was cute. It was a good message. And I thought it was like actually pretty interesting, the storyline and stuff. Um, but yeah, not very overwhelmed about that one either. And I saw Blue Moon. Is that all? Oh no, I saw a couple of other ones. Blue Moon, I just saw the other day. I appreciated also a very classic feel to it. And all these movies, they are not exciting to me. They don't sound as exciting as last year's because they all seem pretty bland and boring and classic, wowing. But anyway, very talky way. I'm pretty sure that was completely intended. And I felt things, but eh, that was my sentiment to it too. Yeah, but I think there was this sense of like, mm, uh, not regret. What's the word? I hate when the word literally just like feels like it's like running away as I'm trying to search for it. Um, Tragedy. Yeah, it felt tragic. I felt that. I felt the tragedy of it. Um, it was sad. But again, it was like men. And like I don't even know what I want to see, but I know what I don't want to see anymore, I guess. And it's that. I don't know, it's just become very boring. I also saw Wicked for Good. Um, don't even know what these are all nominated for because I just have them in list like once by platform. And Wicked for Good, I actually enjoyed a lot more than the first one. I actually liked this one. Um, it was interesting, I guess, the story. But yeah, I really liked this one. The first one I kind of hated, or was again like, why did this need to happen? Why is this such a big deal? But I liked the second one, and I'm glad that I know. I think Roses, you were saying, or April, or someone was saying that even Ariana is back to her weight, different weight. Cynthia Erivo was, but I don't know. I think Ariana's. I don't know. I don't know. She needs maybe an intervention, but whatever. Um, but yeah, no, it was like really good. It was really good. Yeah. So I would actually recommend that one. Whether or not you like the first one or you're into Wicked or whatever, I thought it had some good themes and some different, like, this is kind of, I don't know who wrote it, man, woman, whatever, but felt less, it felt different. So, anyways. And then I saw Avatar. on my birthday. I wasn't going to. Like from the trailers, it didn't excite me, and I wasn't going to see it on my birthday. But then my birthday came, and I was like, yeah, it feels right. It kind of sucked, in my opinion. What I liked about Avatar in the past was that we would get introduced to a new world on this world. Avatar itself, the first one, was completely new, period. And it was very spiritual and spiritually coded. It was interesting. My stepfather took away the the political like things of it, commentary or whatever, and socio-political. And I was like, oh, I didn't even know that. I didn't even see that. I didn't even notice that. But I noticed the spiritual stuff because that's what I was into more and what I was learning more about. So I loved it for that. And then the second one was the second one Way of Water. This is the third one, right? There's like four. Um, we got introduced to the water people and these like totally different new environments and things. And this one was like actiony. It was just action really and like military and eh, that's how I felt about it. I don't know. Didn't like it that much. Maybe that's like on purpose. Maybe it wasn't supposed to be like great in that sense. But yeah, that's I don't know. That's just how I felt about it. And I saw two shorts, Butterfly and Retirement Plan. And Butterfly, I appreciate the like interesting medium they used. It was like drawing or painting or something. Um it was a little hard to follow and I was like, whatever. I don't know, whatever. It was very, I think, emotional for the people whose story that told and stuff, but I don't know. I don't like it that much. I don't really like very artsy movies and things. And then Retirement Plan was another short that was kind of the opposite. It was like not artsy enough. I felt like it was a good message though, but yeah, it was like okay. So those are my Oscar movie things. Um and if you have any recommendations of what I should watch next and stuff, like if you've seen any of the nominated movies and like, oh my gosh, this is awesome. Or like, oh my gosh, this sucked. You have to watch this. Let me know. The one I'm like avoiding and I may never watch is The Ugly Stepsister or The Ugly Sister or whatever. Because that's like a horror one and it looks really creepy and really like just messed up. It kind of almost on the same lines as the Demi Moore one, whatever that one was from last year that I never finished because it was too disturbing and uh, no, thank you. I got the point. Good. I don't need to see the movie. Yeah, kind of thing. So yeah. Other movies that I've seen that are not nominated, bad Predator Badlands. We just saw that. Well, it was really mostly me just seeing that because someone fell asleep. But just outed him. But yeah, that one was actually like, why was that not nominated? That one was really good. So I saw Predator when I was little. Obviously, not the right time, but then I've not seen any other ones except for this one. And I was like, oh, like turning 40, like, let's watch this. And I didn't see it in theaters or anything, but it came out on Disney Plus, I think, just recently. So I loved it. I love again, the new worlds, world introduced, and like the animals and the story and the twists. And I felt like it was original and interesting. Maybe, you know, I, I don't know what original is anymore, but yeah, to me it was original. To me it was interesting, and it was also good. And the predator himself, or the predators, really creepy. I can't not get creeped out by them. So yeah. And then Tron Ares was another one that I don't know that it should have been nominated for anything, but it was good. It was good. It was nice. It's one of those like you know what to expect. You're not expecting too much from it. It was just good. And I think I talked also about Luca. Yeah. I want more movies because I see Materialists on here. I gave it 5 stars. I want more movies like that to be made and be on our screens. Come on, we need we need better content than so much other stuff. Alrighty, so let's go to, and this is probably the only thing we'll get to as far as Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni. But let's get to. Let me like rearrange myself here. Oh my gosh. Oh boy. I'm also extremely sore. Extremely sore. I worked out yesterday. Parakeets are more active. All right. So Blake Lively, Justin Baldoni, um, stuff. What do you call this? Lawsuit. And this being the letter that Blake sent to the Producers Guild of America to give her a PGA credit as a producer. Um, I will be reading most of this, not all of this. I will be reading hers and maybe skimming the letters of recommendation. So, dear Producers Guild of America, I'm writing you with meaningful urgency and also respect. Sorry, don't put things in my head. I'll play with it. That can sound so bad. Sorry. Anyways, yeah. So just that sentence bothers me, but whatever. It's just all that we know, or all that I know, all that I've interpreted, all that I've seen. Just that sounds to me very annoying. I'm sorry, but I'm asking for your attention to this in a crunched time period. I'm positive you have matters much more significant than this, but I bare my heart to you asking for you to take a look at my note, as this film and my work in it off camera means more to me than anything I've done in my 20-year career. Okay, Blake. There's been a recent update slash change with regard to my official role in the upcoming film It Ends With Us, releasing August 9th. Why is it August capital? But anyways, just a few days ago, I was officially granted the title of producer after a year and a half of asking and working tirelessly to prove the validity of that title. I've produced every moment of this film from the pre-production through production into post and now into marketing and worldwide release. I'm grateful that the contract has now been revised to reflect the immense work that I put in, as we all might say, us that have been following this case. No one asked you to put all this work in. Um, but also, this is June 25th, 2024. And I point that out to say because I was a little confused too as to when she got the producer credit. I think she initially maybe was executive producer, and then she's like, no, I want to do more. And this production is where I can actually get my way because these are just little guys and I'm big and I can like finally, hijack more or less allegedly this movie and actually get them to do this. So before I keep going, my personal experience with this, my first 48-hour film project, I was green, I was beyond green, I was not even a green bean, I was like a tiny little green bean beginning. And I remember I reached out, someone told me about this festival or whatever competition, and I reached out, I think, to one of the groups. They were looking for people or something, I don't know. And they're like, okay, yeah, come as, I think they said line producer. I'm like, what is that? And they explain. I'm like, okay, I still don't know what a line producer is, honestly, right now, off the top of my head. But I was like, okay, cool. I'll just basically observe. I'll just come on board to observe, to learn. Not the best group to learn from, but I didn't know that at the time. Hold on. It was kind of like this, except I wasn't Blake Lively. But it was kind of like this in the sense of, because so the thing too is, I wonder without Blake if the production would have been as difficult, if Justin would have been as inexperienced of a director, or if her involvement made him look that way and made him just be more incompetent than he actually is, because she would like make things more difficult, changes, all the stuff get in the way, right? But basically, I signed up for this group. I was, it was two guys primarily. And I was with them on, so you get from Friday evening to Sunday evening to write, film, edit a movie, a short movie. And ideally, you don't have any, like you might have ideas, but you don't have anything written down, et cetera, et cetera. So you don't have a script. You do that from the get, from like when you start the competition. So I was with them that Friday from like 6 to I think 2 or 3 a.m. And they had sort of an idea of what they wanted, but no script. And I was like, this doesn't feel great. All right. Um, and I knew that they were lost, like clearly. Like it didn't take a genius for me to be an expert in this industry to know like that's just not how you do it. So next day, Saturday, we met, I think at 9 a.m. at this coffee shop. By 11 a.m., um, again, it was just like ideas being bounced. The idea, I think, was starting to change at one point. And I've seen this since too, actually, now that I think about it. It's also with guys. But yeah, the ideas were starting to change. Nothing was like really materializing as far as like a script or a very solid, like, yes, this is what we're doing and let's like keep going. And so at one point I said, before this, I was very shy, I was reserved, I was a wallflower, I was that. So I don't know how in the world I like, if you knew me my whole life, you would not know how in the world I basically said, okay, got like a piece of paper out or my notebook, and I said, okay, let's start with a timeline. Let's at least get that done. And then let's like more or less improvise or make the lines as we go and all that stuff. But let's get a timeline of how you want the story to like be carried through, right? So a timeline down. And I also had a contact that year that had like a location of like this coffee shop. So a contact with a contact, and we got that coffee shop. We went to some other places to film and stuff. Yeah, it was really kind of disastrous, but not the worst thing I've been on. No, maybe. Um, but yeah, needless to say, I was Blake in the sense as I did kind of take over. I You could kind of say that I took over then, even though like I wasn't creating a story. I was just like helping them up to that point. But then when we got to the coffee shop, this was like a couple of scenes after, I was noticing that it was not moving along. People were like getting hungry, cranky, tired, whatever. And so somehow I started saying like, hey, like let's shoot from this angle, whatever. I don't even remember exactly, but somehow I found myself like director, the guy who wanted to be the director, was outside, and I was there directing these. You could say that I took over. I say that story because me saying that story was also a point of pride to me. And the way that whole thing ended, I think we kind of like did. I don't think I like carry that through every scene, but I think I did a couple more scenes like that. And then at the end, they were supposed to edit. They had like two editors, and one editor was supposed to like edit it while we were like shooting overnight, and then the other was like going to tie it all together. And I was like, "Cool guys, see ya. Nice working with you, whatever." And I went to like a family thing. They call me desperately, like, "Where are you? You need to come back because we can't edit this. We need your help." I never edited in my life. No, at that point, I did edit. I edited two submissions for film school, but I never edited outside of that. Whatever. So they did ask my help, but I was like, I'm tired. Like I did all of this. I was supposed to just like watch and observe and learn. And I'm what and we stayed until 4 a.m. So we stayed until 2 or 3 a.m. Friday night, up to like, I think 2 a.m. Saturday night. I got lost coming back because whatever. And then Sunday, I don't know what time we met, but we stayed up to 4 a.m. Monday morning, pretty much editing. And I ended up editing. Like, not even, I came back and I was like, okay, well, what do you guys have? They went to dinner and left me with this guy's laptop. And I got in a groove and I was like, okay, I get it. And then when they came back, I was trying to explain and pass it on, but no. And it ended up being that I would have edited that thing faster than with them because I edited more like efficiently when I was by myself for that hour and a half or however for them at dinner. So that aside, I'm not saying that I'm amazing. I am saying that at that time, I somehow was a bit better than they were, or just like more clear minded or something, whatever the case was. I was also not Blake Lively. I did not have a 20-year career. I did not know exactly, how to like respect people's pieces, and if it's not your job, like just let them fail it or like let them do whatever they want. I'm not saying Justin was failing. I'm saying like from her point of view, you know. Um of course, like I wasn't the face of it either, so you could say that, but like then don't sign up for something, or I don't know, don't have that much ego. But wait. Oh, my laptop is actually hot, which never happens. Wow. Okay. Um, but yeah, I said that story more so to illustrate that I was green. I was inexperienced. I I was not someone who knows better. And my pride in me taking over that project was immaturity. So I have a hard time seeing Blake having this 20-year career and having worked with like big names and all this stuff justified in what she did and justified in this letter. That's why I said that. So, continuing. I'm kind of worried about this, about my thing though, my laptop. Let's see if I can put it a little bit on an angle. All right, stay. um I'm writing to ask for the great honor of receiving the PGA tag. I don't take that lightly. In our household, that's the highest honor in film, so I understand the gravity of the ask. Mm, sorry, that got to me too. I also understand the absurdity of asking this late. Without the official title of producer, my hands were tied. I couldn't apply when I wanted to. No crew could tick me in the box of producers who should receive the tag when polled. I'm pleading now because I'm confident with all my soul that if you saw what I did on this film, you would agree that this mark is, without question, deserved. I'll lay out how we got here below because I appreciate that this isn't the way the process usually works. Again, what I see is like very like my soul, very flowery language and very like appealing language, and recognizing, hey, this isn't, I understand that this is not your normal process, but make an exception for me. But she goes on to say why. She thinks like, oh, yeah, whatever. You granted the PJ mark or PJ tag to two producers, Alex Sachs and Jamie Heath, on April 18th. I'm in full support of their tags. Glad that you were asked, Blake. My understanding is that they both are in support of mine. I have a note from Alex below attached below because yes, we also proofread this, Blake, along with 16 other department heads, and Jamie, if asked, I'm sure would confirm the work I did. Hmm. Coercion much? That's what that sounds like. Okay, so much has changed since they filed for their tag. The most significant being that the cut of the film that was selected to be released is my cut, which I'll lay out in more detail later. But I imagine you appreciate the gravity of that advancement alone since April 18th. As to not get too bogged down in more of the why now details, I'll focus on the facts of the work I did in each stage of production, bulleted out below. I apologize for how dense it is, but it's important to me to lay out all I've done when asking for such a significant consideration from you all at the PGA. I'm changing the font to make the read as easy as possible. Okay, that's a weird thing. Also, then she changed it back to small, or I don't know. Wanted to also say before I read the bullet points to like finish what she was saying. Um, what did she say? Something about, was it at the end? At the end, where's the thing disappeared? Oh, right. No, it wasn't. But it was at one point. She was saying how like, well, I know that you gave this to Matt Damon, so like you can do this exception for me or something like that. Um, yeah, anyways. All right. So, development, pre-production. I led the location shift from Boston to New Jersey and helped to solve all cost and schedule logistics associated. So you're bragging that you like changed the location from Boston, what was in the book originally, to New York to be convenient for you. Didn't mention that, did you? To New Jersey, whatever, potato potato. So I called and or wrote emails to crew and put forth names for department head roles, including hair, makeup, director of photography, costume design, transportation, security, camera operators, etc. Okay. Identified and onboarded freelance team members for the cast members, not just myself, to help achieve the goals for the screen, including a fitness trainer. We know how that went. Nutritionist, meal prep service, spray tanner, wig maker, hair colorist, etc. Spray tanner for yourself? Like you're bragging for what? Okay. It's probably not just for herself, but like why? I don't know. It sounds very self-indulgent. The fitness plan trainer, like, yeah. This is also stuff that makes probably future directors or producers be wary of collaborations. I feel like identified and onboarded freelance team members for sorry, I reviewed and reshaped the creative of the production design for all key locations for all characters. Also made changes to use existing elements of locations to save cost. After you inflated the cost, at least like you didn't mention that you added more budget with your bad wardrobe choices. I called in favors with some design contacts to get items loaned, discounted, or gifted to save production design costs. I reviewed and reshaped the creative of the costume design for all characters. Why? I called in favors with fashion contacts to get items loaned. Sorry. I reviewed and reshaped that. Wait, did I say that twice? Oh no, the first one was home design. The second one was fashion. Okay. So she saved costume design costs. Okay. I reviewed and reshaped the creative of the prop and floral design for the key film element of the film. The protagonist is a florist. I did outreach to florists all over Instagram and beyond, helping with the marketing activation to future florists in the film and connected the best names with production. And when I read this, I thought, why didn't you put this much thought into the character and into the actual story and reaching out to victims and understanding being a victim and all those things? Because florist is like something more up your alley, is what I'm guessing, allegedly. I went through hundreds of casting tapes to help find the rest of the cast, including our stars Atlas, Young Lily, Young Atlas, and Jenny Bloom. I thought Young Lily was Justin's find. That he's like, oh Blake, I found this. Like it's between these two actresses, right? And Jenny Bloom because of her nose. Same thing. Like what? I rewrote the script to improve the role of Jenny Bloom after three actresses turned it down. The thing with that one is like I don't even remember her mom. Jenny Bloom is the mom. I don't even remember the mom. The mom was not a big character. So why even matter? And that's kind of what this whole thing is. It's like, first of all, she took over a whole bunch. Second, but she was asaged. What the heck? And what? No, like what? But then also like for this very, 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 very extremely minor role, like she has all these like things that are not that. It's giving someone making a resume like a new person, not an experienced 20-year career person making a resume. And I'm going to include every little thing because I don't have anything really that big and the confidence that it will be enough. So I have to include every very little thing. I mean, I know that you have to have, quite a significant amount of like involvement in all of these stages to be given this mark, but like that I don't know that the script is why they turned it down. And also you are disgustingly, my opinion, just an actress. I'm not saying it's disgusting that she's an actress. I'm just saying that a disgust came to me as I was like thinking that she was hired on as an actress, not as a script writer. There was a woman script writer, not as a script writer or screenwriter, whatever, not as like a costume designer, not as anything, not as anything. And if you have contacts to help out with costs and stuff, cool. Executive producer, great, great. You help out. But like, this is way beyond that. No. I personally identified and put forth Amy Morton to play Jenny Bloom after the rewrite was implemented. Amy accepted our offer. So you put her forth and you rewrote. So who knows if your rewrites were the thing that like made all the difference if you put her forth, but whatever. I worked alongside my agents as well as other talent agencies to put forth names for Atlas, sending links to their work. And in many cases, had interest and availability. I screen tested. What's your job to screen test for chemistry? And Oh boy. When we struck out with those actors, we offered the role to our original choice, Brendan Sklenar, who then turned it down. Whatever Brendan is about, however like crappy he is or not crappy he is, I bet in his mind somewhere he says, "Why did I change my mind? I could have avoided being part of this whole thing." Who then turned it down. So the team get involved in convincing him to do it. So, like she said, she doesn't take no for an answer. If she wants something, she gets it. So, in those thoughts, you could also not take SH for an answer. And if you want it to stop, you're going to make it stop. You don't need a 17 bullet point list, much later in the production. You can just say, hey, no, get your team involved. You say yourself, blah, blah, blah. Like, this is the thing, too. Like, she could have had her agent reach out. She could have had like a proxy say, hey, like, this is not okay with Blake or whatever, if that was like uncomfortable. But like, clearly, you continuously said you don't take no for an answer. You don't know no, just like your mom. That's like what she has said multiple times. So, I wrote him a personal letter as well. He accepted the role. I gave the directors references for the characters, dialogue, and visuals. Sorry, the director. Did I say directors? I don't know. Gave the director references for the characters, dialogue, and visuals. Pretty sure he had that. I'm pretty sure he had that. I don't know. I zoomed with every cast member to get their notes and ideas. Why? I'm sorry. I read some of this and some of this I didn't. I don't know if I read this before, but it got to me viscerally as if I read it for the first time. Why did you Zoom with every cast member to get their ideas? That's the role of the freaking producers and or director. It's mainly the director, I assume. Why the heck did you make that your problem and your not your problem, your like responsibility just because you wanted this whole thing from the beginning, right? Allegedly, apparently, that's what it looks like. Because there's no reason you needed to get involved in that. Who are you? You are no one. And this just makes you even more of a no one. You thinking that you doing this in this context, you taking over all these responsibilities, like I did, back in my very first 48-hour film project, very first like set thing, you know, just proves that you do not deserve this PGA mark, that you are not good at this, that you did not actually deserve this responsibility or any of it. Because you are just like, in my opinion, all of this is my opinion. I feel like I need to say this, but like, you're not good at this. I don't know. I don't know. I'm kind of riled up, so I don't even know how to say it. No pun intended. I then did significant rewrites of the script to incorporate all the notes of cast, studio, distributor, author, director, and myself, since our writer was not available at that time because she was on another job. That maybe makes sense, but then we also know the letter that Blake herself wrote to Christy Hall, the writer, saying, "Hey, I'm sorry that I/Ryan rewrote your scene and stuff," right? And did significant rewrites. So that's not really adding up between the two of them, what she said here in that letter to me. I also addressed scheduling. I mean, this they could both be true, but convenient. I also addressed scheduling, financial, location, weather, and or other logistical constraints in the rewrite. Some of this, like that, seems like duh. Like, are you a 5-year-old? Do you not know? Like, of course you did that. Like, that would be stupid. Not like that. You don't need to write that as a bullet point. I pushed the studio distributor and director to change the rating of the film from R to PG-13 because there was a significantly bigger market opportunity with PG-13, which the book captured. I argue that order to in order to replicate the book's success, to replicate in the screen adaptation, we need to serve the same age range of audience. So 13-year-olds read this book, and you are like, yes, this should be it. Yeah, we need to encourage that. Okay. The issue was the studio already had a deal in place with the distributor to deliver an R-rated film. I had multiple conversations with all parties, helping to convince everyone of the shared bigger opportunity for all, because that's all that mattered to her. It wasn't the story. This is my opinion. This is what that sounds like to me. It didn't matter. And also because I think back at the text message to Justin, and she kept bringing up how profitable, how good marketing wise or whatever, how like all of that. Like I remember I can't even replicate what she said because it wasn't necessarily the most sense English, but like it was just that she was just focused on the success of the movie rather than the story. Like I mean, literally you had these two polar opposites. Justin was like invested in the story, make a difference in people's lives, do some good in the world, and Blake was profit, 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 ego success, ego success, success. That's what it looks like, my opinion, allegedly, blah 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 blah. Anyways, um, so yeah, I had multiple conversations to convince everyone of the shared bigger opportunity for all, resulting in everyone agreeing to make the film PG-13, which is where it stands today. Which I think I just don't understand why. And I wonder if that was part of the whole bigger view and plan that she had at that point. Um, and what I mean by that is not necessarily to take over the movie and to do this lawsuit and that she planned it all from the beginning. I don't know. I'm not saying that. But it makes me think of how she negotiates and how she's uncomfortable with like certain things. And so, like, it sounds more self serving also, like she wanted to make this PG-13 so she didn't have to do things that were uncomfortable to her. So she changed everyone else's life to fit her comfortability. That's what it looks like also in the context of other things we've seen, to me. Not sure, maybe it was really that simple. It was just for the ratings and the success. It is kind of like fail or fail, in my opinion right now. But that also strikes my mind. Is that a phrase? Probably not. Makes me think of that too. That she did it so she didn't have to be intimate. And I'm not even talking about sex. I'm talking about like intimacy, and to show that much and blah 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 blah. I don't know. I know that one thing I think is for sure, again, my opinion, is that no one respects her in Hollywood because she's not really respectful. She's not putting herself out there as a respectful actress. And I'm not saying that you have to be nude to be respectful. I'm saying that like it sounds a lot more that she's more concerned of how she looks. Um and these like the nudity thing and stuff, that's your like comfort level, fine, but I do think that there's like ways that you can be very um you can have limits around that and still uh be respectful to the craft of acting and carrying out the point of a scene or a movie, because some require that, and it might be uncomfortable and not anyone is comfortable with doing that, and quote don't do that, but you also signed up for this movie where pretty sure you didn't have to read the book. I'm pretty sure Justin or whoever told you what this movie was about and assumed or was told that there would be like uncomfortable content that needed to happen. And yeah, I don't know. It does seem like this movie was watered down to begin with. Just the book itself seems, I don't know, whatever. Like it got a lot of criticism for how it didn't handle, um, harassment and or abuse or whatever in the best way. But yeah, this might be controversial. Maybe 10 years from now, just like the America's Next Top Model thing, like it's going to sound different and we're going to think differently. But I still think like you can have a need for nudity or partial nudity or whatever. I'm not even saying full nudity. I'm just saying like you can have a need for certain uncomfortable things or for like okay, let me give you a very crude example. In the movie Trump with Sebastian Stan, there was a scene of I don't know if I can say it or not, but grape. That was, I think, extremely needed to show a change in the story in this person's self or the perception of themselves by others or whatever, or to show the cruelty or like the stuff, like it was, that was needed, and the way that it was done was very vulnerable and realistic. And well, I don't know, realistic, I guess I can't speak for it exactly, but it felt very realistic. It made you uncomfortable, and it was uncomfortable. I mean, they said that it was comfortable as far as like they had rehearsed it, it was whatever, but like I'm saying, they put themselves in that situation that Blake couldn't, and but that was needed. And without that, if you water everything down, you're kind of losing the lesson and the impact it has on someone, because some people might not see that impact or feel that impact, and so they might dismiss someone who has been raped or whatever, because they're like, well, I can't relate to that, I've never seen that, I don't have like an emotional identity to it. And movies and scenes like that, not only for the storyline of a character, but also for our empathy, to grow our empathy with other people and to understand even ourselves in a situation, like have maybe see red flags or whatever. That's important. So this is not really a boasting moment of like, oh, I made this to my comfort level. Again, this is alleged. This is not, again, it's not like theorizing completely about why she fought for a PG-13. It's a complete theory, but it's a thought to be had because of other conversations that seem to be around this, what she's comfortable and not comfortable showing or doing or whatever. Like she's not comfortable having orgasms, I think, right, on screen. It's like, where would Bridgerton be without that? And I was talking about like Bridgerton season one and how like it is important, especially like for like a change in narrative, to show like women being pleasured versus doing the pleasure all the time or being there for the male, taking over or whatever. And not that you can't have that in a relationship healthily in both, in all the different ways, but like again, like it would be so different to have Bridgerton without people orgasming on screens. And as uncomfortable as it might make any of us, sometimes it's made me uncomfortable. Sometimes, like, oh, okay, whatever. But I would not say, oh yeah, like when I auditioned, even though I had zero chance, again, like I'm not delusional over here. But like I thought like, okay, I would agree to that. Like that's the purpose of the show. I know what I'm signing up for. Again, I didn't think I would ever even be seen or contacted or anything like that. But like I did have that thought because as I was like submitting, like I did, do that. I didn't just like jump into the water as much as I knew there was like 0% chance. Like I still thought that through. And yeah, like you sign up for that. And yeah, and I think some of that is maybe gratuitous, but I think a lot of of Bridgerton is not that gratuitous. I think it's like with a purpose. So same thing with this. Blake will have even less respect now. Yeah, I guess I was trying to say like now specifically with all of this coming out and how she's not comfortable and all this stuff, and she's not really taking acting seriously. She's rewriting the script. She's doing all of these things. Whereas an actor, you would like actually do the best and amazing work with maybe crap stuff that you're given. And sometimes you don't, you can't, but like she doesn't seem like she has any respect for the craft of acting and for what acting means to people. I think that we don't even talk or think about that often. We take even Predator or whatever, we take these movies for granted and like, oh, whatever, acting or like a sex scene or whatever. Predator didn't have that. I'm just saying, like, all these movies have different things that we might take for granted or say, it's whatever. But like the impact it has on what it teaches us, like we learn visually, and what we ingest visually or audibly or whatever, we really, it sticks to us, we learn it. And our lives and ourselves, our personalities are created every day with what we ingest. That's also another reason why I'm like, this whole like watching the news for 8 hours a day, every day or more is not really a great idea. And also like watching horror movies all the time or whatever. It's like we do we do change based on what we see. And that's why I think like we undersell acting. We undersell what actors can provide us, I should say. We just think, oh, it's a vanity thing, or, like, oh, they get to play pretend. Not if they do it right, not if they take it seriously. No. For some reason, Erin Brockovich comes to mind. I've not even actually seen that movie, but for some reason that comes to mind. Um, but there's like impact. There's impact even in a movie like this, or like Elio, which is a cartoon about this little boy being abducted by aliens and things. And or like whatever, like there's everything has an opportunity to affect us for the better. And so you being like, oh, I'm not comfortable with like certain things, that okay, like fine, but like don't change everyone else's world for yours. Don't change the whole production, the whole like movie for you what you are comfortable. Like think about, put the story first, which she also didn't do with the marketing and with the whole thing, right? Because she put this whole drama before the movie's message and all that stuff that even Brendan Sklenar was trying to say. But like, what are you talking about, Brendan, when clearly your co-star that you're protecting or buddy with is doing the opposite? She wasn't able to put the message first. She wasn't able to like put the victims first, that maybe you could have gotten something from this, or their friends and family or whoever. So yeah, or even abusers that maybe would have changed because of seeing another version of this movie, which sounds maybe like impossible to us, but it's not impossible. Like that's the whole point. She just seems like she just thought about herself. And I just don't like people. I think that's eventually who gets on top, but I still am allowed to not like that. Is what I'm saying. I think you're right. She took over so she can change. Did I say? Oh, she can change it so she didn't have to change scenes, so she didn't have to do it and feel uncomfortable because she didn't feel comfortable in her own body. Yeah. Um, yeah. Again, we don't know at the end of the day. I think, it's hard to tell because part of it also looks like she just wanted to um to make a profit, have success and stuff like that. Maybe it was both. But yeah, I don't know. Doesn't look good. Production. I constantly broke schedule and budget in pre-production and then daily and then hourly during production. I think I was saying this when I was reading this. Why were you doing that instead of your job, your main job of acting, learning your lines, reading the book, doing character work? I unfortunately was responsible for the firing of our first AD, Julie, as we were not making our days for the first many weeks. And I had the 20 years of experience to see that the days were not boarded well enough from the get go. And her experience was not appropriate for the film we were making. I mean, at least she owned that she fired what, a female leader in the movie, because the first AD is arguably a huge leader on a movie set. Hmm. Instead of, I don't know, maybe helping her. If you really saw, okay, this person's not experienced enough and she's a woman, I have women's backs, right? You could have helped her out, just like you helped the director apparently that didn't need your help or asked for it, or maybe he did, but just like everyone else, why did you have to fire someone instead of just taking over their job and just be quiet about it? Um, and it also makes me think like, what was the movie that it turned into being made? Again, I think like her existence in this production kind of changed things. And like I don't know that it's fair that this AD had to pay the price for that, and who knows how many other people. I flagged security risks and pushed to getting the entire crew badges. That is kind of weird that they didn't have that, but anyways, I'd never been on a set without them. Yeah, it would be. Yeah, they were not put in place for this production. We were having breaches where fans were filming our monitors and uploading the scenes to TikTok because no one knew who was crew and who wasn't. Badges were in places days later. I'll give her that one. Like, if you notice that and people weren't doing that, that is kind of strange. Cool. I think that does show, like, yeah, they didn't know the scope of this, like, popularity. I flagged and had the production name changed to an alias as a standard in my experience. This changed all signs for locations, call sheets, transportation, etc. As the film's true title was all over every sign identified and a correspondence identifier. As a result of using the actual title, we were being flooded with unwanted security breaches, paparazzi, large crowds, and leaks. Yeah, okay, sure. I helped to block the staging of every scene for shooting efficiency. Now, yeah, she gets me on this one. She was the one moving things back because she was sick. Yeah, 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 that's right. Yeah. Yeah, she had like not bronchitis. What did she have? Like four times strep throat or something, four times. But yeah, I helped to block the staging of every scene for shooting efficiency. Let that sink in. She blocked the staging for every scene. And then she complains of liberties taken. I mean, I know it's not the same thing, but it's a big one. Oftentimes asking to block the night before so the crew could pre-light without wasting the time of pulling the cast from hair and makeup to rehearse. I mean, I don't know that's necessary, but okay, cool. But if she's saying that she helped to block not by being an actress, but like literally making the blocking of the scenes, which is like, if it's the same thing that I'm thinking of, like you know, kind of know the choreography of the scene, like where everything will be, everyone will be. Basically, if you read this really and you sit back, she did everything. This was a one woman show that she was sexually harassed on this set, where she directed, produced, blocked scenes, rewrote scripts, did all this stuff. And I'm sorry for any of those women that are still like okie dokie or whatever it was, okie dokie. These women that are still like, oh, poor woman, she was sexually harassed, and it's like men's world and boo men and blah blah blah. And like, yeah, even like strong women can be harassed and this and that. Like, I'm sorry, I'm not really after reading this, and if, of course, if these are also true, like, I'm not buying that wallflower, wilted flower, whatever, like, vision of this lady called Blake Lively. When we came back after the strikes, I was writing as we were shooting to meet real time hurdles and demands with regard to schedule, budget, and creative needs. So she was writing some more. Yeah. Okay. I reviewed and stated COVID protocols when we had an outbreak and lost many key crew members. I think it was like, what, three or something? And it wasn't key crew members that I think that's what I remember from the text messages and things. But also, like, it seemed like, based on Ryan's interview on, was it the Jimmy Kimmel show or something? It seemed like the COVID came from Ryan's set on Deadpool through Blake Lively to these people. So I wouldn't brag that about, you know, you cause a problem, then you put in the fix. I mean, that's like our president. I reviewed and instated allegedly. I reviewed and instated COVID protocols. Yeah, I manage the politics and HR concerns on a daily basis, acting as an intermediary to keep crew and cast engaged, safe, and on board. And this was like very fun to read, obviously, for obvious reasons, where like she was sexually harassed and she went to HR. Well, she was HR. Not exactly, but we're exaggerating a little bit, but not that much by what she's saying. She managed the politics and HR concerns. And she probably, what she means about this is maybe the list and talking to people behind people's backs and all this stuff. Like, oh, look, I managed. Again, creating a problem and then fixing it, but not really, whatever. I shot listed with the director, DP, and first AD, not usually all at once, just when it was asked of me. Hard to imagine when she was asked, like, really. On round two of the film, we shot half of the film before the strike and a half after. I would speak to our first AD, Chris Surgeon. Oh, so she fired a woman first AD. And what do you know? She put a man first AD. You couldn't find a woman first AD that was skilled and experienced, really? Mm. Um, every night, so she would speak to the first AD that she instated, I'm assuming, every night for nearly an hour on my drive home. And once I arrived home, to assess and rework our schedule to help make our days. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. I just transported myself in Justin's like body for a second back then. And this is like horrifying. And rework our schedule to help make our days, which we were struggling to make. When we say that she hijacked the movie, until you read this, you don't really fully get the full experience of what that meant, really, that he probably felt. And even in reading this, like, you probably, can't imagine. But like, she really took over completely. It was not his movie anymore. He was like just tossed aside. It is. allegedly what it seems like, what it looks like. It is, or it sounds horrible. And to brag about this, my parakeet's just like took that. Bye. Okay. I was able to omit 3+ days of shooting via rethinking the schedule, changeovers, locations, stunts, weather, and adapting the script to accommodate. Again, she had a lot of like, oh no, I can't do it. I can't. I'm going to go to. I'm already in England with my family. I'm already here. I'm already there. I'm sick. I was the director's partner in all creative and logistical concerns. Ew. Helping to execute the best outcome for the film. I would push back when needed. I would support when needed. The film is and was always my top priority. Has not sounded like that yet. I'm just saying. And also, I would push back when needed, support when needed. I don't even know what to honestly say because I feel like it's a dumb moment for a lot of these. It's probably not for everyone. For us, I think like we all kind of hear and like feel just this is not good. I don't know, but yeah. I imagine too, for some of it, he might have looked up to her because she has the 20+ year experience, which he also has kind of, but like in a different, scale. Um, but yeah, he probably at times, I'm sure, was like, "Ooh, if she has that suggestion, like, ooh, like I'm curious. Oh, that's how, you know, get her experience, and also woman, and like make the woman feel seen and heard, and especially when she tells you that she's not been given that, before, and blah blah blah. Like, yeah, but I watched the monitor between every take to be sure everything that ended up on screen from every department was best servicing the film and led the changes needed to get where there when applicable. Yeah, just when issues arose, I led the hiring of a freelance producer to help balance the set, the incredible Todd Black. I led hiring a new intimacy coordinator and intimacy doubles. I don't know why that I've not come across that. That was the first. She hired a new intimacy coordinator to help block out the sensitive scenes for both safety and shooting efficiency. Also, like, unless there's scenes that we've not seen, no scene was highly sensitive. I mean, like, I'm not to make like light of, all of this and stuff, but like, just for someone with trauma, okay, but like I'm talking like from like the acting point of view and stuff, like what scenes did she need body doubles for? Or intimacy doubles or whatever? Mhm, mhm. Eh, Excuse me. Yeah, I didn't know a new intimacy coordinator was hired either. I don't know why that didn't come up before. I help to manage the logistics and protections of a closed set. And when there were oversights, I stopped production to make sure the set was safe and complying with all players' nudity riders and contracts. Again, made a problem that wasn't there. I made sure cast members had mini green rooms on set when I noticed the time we lost to cast leaving to go back to their more distant green rooms. I called and led meetings with all department heads, the studio, the studio and the distributor when we had extenuating circumstances challenging our production plan, including the wildfires as well as picketers from the writers' strike. I acted as a liaison between cast and their reps in finding solutions to finishing the film. That's a whole that is that like just one. I feel like that's a lot. Why is this paragraph not bulleted? So she called and led meetings with all department heads, studio and distributor for extenuating circumstances. Oh my gosh. Um, Acted as a liaison between cast and their reps in finding solutions to finishing the film. Acted as an intermediary between the other actors, their reps, and also crew members who were coming for to me for guidance. That does not sound like narcissism. I don't know. And again, in the context, allegedly, supposedly, theorizing over here. But in the context, it's not just like taking those words, but in the context. Like at the beginning, I remember I made a video about is she, actually a narcissist? I will double down on we can't know, we can't diagnose from afar and from what we know or not know, right? But there's a lot of signs pointing to like DSM-5 type of narcissism. That just kind of called out to me. But again, we don't know, can't, that's not a diagnosis. I'm just speculating, theorizing, allegedly, all that stuff. Um, but yeah, so coming to her for guidance and help because they were concerned about being replaced with people who would cross the WGA picket line. I absolved them of their concerns. I absolved them. What a word of being replaced by standing in support of the WGA myself and not crossing a picket line myself. All right, cool. Um, I think maybe she's referring to that place where um when she went to England or whatever already when they had a a window to finish like some days, like 2 days, 3 days, some days before the strike, or like they had like a special grant or something. I forget. There was something. Anyways, finally, post. I have spent at minimum 10 hours a day. This one I remember I really threw a fit over. Spent a minimum of 10 hours a day every day since April 22nd. This was June, right? June 6th. On the post of this film. My longest days have been 22 hours, and that has happened multiple times. I realized I realized this sounds like an exaggeration, especially because for periods of that, I was shooting another film or raising my 4 children. But anyone on this post process will verify this is unfortunately true. I've been sleeping on average 1.5 to 3 hours a night for over 2 months to get this film recut, reworked, and done. That no one asked you to recut, to rework, and get done. It was already. You redid things, you fired people like the musical composer, you brought your own. Same with like editors. No one asked you to do this, to put yourself in the situation. You didn't need to. It was already maybe not to your standards, maybe better standards, maybe worse. Who knows? We won't maybe never know. But like no one asked you to do this. This is such crap, in my opinion. And the thing with the 1.5 to 3 hours a night, I was saying this like maybe if she would have slept more, we wouldn't have had this problem or a lot of these problems. Maybe you were a little sleep deprived and seeing things becoming a little delusional. I'm getting really mean right now and like pushing the line and boundaries, but like yeah, no one on 3 hours of sleep is going to think rationally, um, react rationally. One of the things that my therapist said, I'm not even sure that I believe that, but one of my things that my therapist taught me is like, don't have like difficult conversations, but not only that, but that's primarily don't have difficult conversations when you're like it's halt or something like that. Like hungry, angry, um, lonely, tired, or triggered. I think there was like an S too. Maybe not. I don't know. But yeah, if you've been chronically sleep deprived as a mother, as just someone working a lot, someone who has insomnia for whatever reason, you might have noticed that just like when you're like overly drinking, overly drunk, like your nervous system, your perception, your reaction to things, your handling of things, you can't handle things well, you can't think clearly, like so many things change. There is something where, like, it is, scientifically proven that being drunk and being chronically tired, like for 2 months, 1 to 3 hours of sleep only kind of thing, you it's kind of the same. You will have less reaction time driving. Like, you shouldn't be driving, you shouldn't operate heavy machinery, you should sleep. um so this being a brag of some sort or whatever, like, I'm not saying people don't do this because they have to, but she didn't have to. And she also caused so many issues. So, like, I don't know, whatever. Moving on. That was maybe me just being mean, but it is what it is sometimes. I worked with the film's original editor, Una, for 10 days in New York, starting April 22nd, to be sure the director's goals, like, you freaking cared. Because at this point, I'm pretty sure she wasn't even talking to the director at all, and hence had to go through the editor. But because she was in discard mode, in my opinion, theorizing allegedly, where she just like was done with him, didn't need him anymore, by was not even talking to him. To be sure, the director's goals and preferences for the film were understood and honored before starting with my own editors to expand the audience and commerciality of this film. The plan was to start with my editors, which she was focused on. In those text messages, I remember those early day text messages, I remember he kept making it about the message and also like validating her, like, yeah, success. But she kept bringing success and commerciality over and over and over again. And he was more like validating her, but not, that was not what sounded like it was his purpose, because nothing that he's made that I'm aware of was with that purpose. Now, having a version of that, yes, like, you want your movie to be seen and have an impact on as many people as possible. Well, that's why you make it. That's different than like this commerciality thing of it. The plan was to start with my editors on May 2nd, but it was key to me to honor all players, so I offered the extra 10 days to handle this most responsibly and thoughtfully. And again, I believe, and I might be wrong, but in the text message exchanges and timeline and stuff, wasn't he saying like, no, that's not happening? Like, I need more time. And so it wasn't her allowing more time. Oh, I don't, I didn't know this was like going on. Okay. Um, again, I worked with my own editors, almost. I worked with my own editors May to onward, running a room of sometimes three editors at once as we pushed to meet and eventually pictured lock. I remain working with Alan Baumgarten as we finish out the final details of the film. I brought on composer, the duo Rob Simonson and Duncan Stoff. Personally reaching out to Rob and convincing him to join us with very limited time, troubleshooting financial logistical hurdles to get him on board. But she saved money, right? I hand selected 90% of the songs in the film. She can't She brags about this. Hand selected 90% of the songs in the film and worked alongside Season Kent, our music supervisor, to test or shape the ones we do have with our music editor Robbie. I also work with her to this day on budget considerations and switch out songs as needed to meet our budget. Someone was saying, I don't know if it was one of you guys or someone else was saying how like the point of having not actual songs in a movie like this or like for most of the movie is to be able to get the experience across to the audience, where songs that are popular like I think Lana Del Rey or Taylor Swift songs, um those take away from you being in the movie. And I remember I thought in the trailer, the Taylor's song, that specific song was a good choice, but in the actual movie, I remember watching the movie and thinking, this is the wrong time. This is not the right time for this. This is too early in the movie. This is not the right time for the song. That song could have come later in the movie and it would have maybe worked. But this, I remember thinking that, and I'm not a sound person or whatever, but it was just so clear like, ooh, this is clashing with what's going on right now in the story, where we are emotionally in the story and mentally, and like what we know so far and where we're going and where, this is clashing with that, and you're telling me how to think and feel, but it's at the wrong time. It's not, it's like clashing. So but yeah, but she wanted the songs because also it sounds like she is, I was going to call her stupid, but I don't know what other word to use. Dumb. You can tell I'm like getting very catty and base myself right now. Like I'm not at my best. But yeah, like she doesn't she like she took nothing from this 20-year career. Like she clearly is not good at this. The thing though, when you have this much money and power, you don't have to be good to make your own movie and be the producer of your own project and create a project for yourself. People are going to work with you because of your name, because of who you are, because you're friends with them or whatever. You don't need to do this. You don't need to do this. I think she planned the PGA mark from before the movie started. It it seems like that to me too. And I like you're like laughing. Yeah. um it's hard to like, sometimes go high when they go low. And I mean, reading Michelle Obama's book, and then she also clarified that it doesn't mean you don't get angry, and sometimes you call people out. You know, I think she would maybe not approve, but probably find it funny. Anyways, I work with Spring, the head of clearances at Sony, on song budget and clearances. I've personally called and emailed many of the artists to convince them to let us use their songs, and have also negotiated with them on pricing. Four of the biggest artists included in our film passed on the film until I personally called them, wrote letters to them, and then finalized with their representatives. Stupid just keeps coming up. I've worked with our sound designers and mixers for multiple test screenings and now the final mix. Sitting with the Sony mix stage in the Sony mix stage until 2 a.m., working every day detail. Again, like you're praising yourself for being a control freak, not necessarily a plus. And I remain in the thick of that work, listening into mix sessions on my custom Dolby headphones. I don't. I think by now she probably kind of lost her mask. Your custom Dolby headphones made for our mix stage. Often coordinating, sorry, already skipped ahead, as well as coming out to LA next week for the final week of Mix in person. I've worked with our music editor, Robbie, to be sure every moment of each song is coming in and out at the exact right spots and with the right emotion, often coordinating between him, Season, our music supervisor. I thought Robbie was a girl. Season, our music supervisor, and our composers, Rob and Duncan. Okay, so I remember, I think, I don't know if it was Steven Spielberg saying, like, you have to trust your editors, you have to trust your team, you have to hire the team that sometimes challenge you, but they know their area the best. And sometimes, as a director, I'm pretty sure that it happens often when you are more on the controlling side and you have to like really be there, like, no, like go a second more, a second less. I feel like, unfortunately, I will admit I'm more like that. I have a vision and I have like something and I'm really specific and I will drive that. Which is why I also haven't really worked with editors, I think. One, because I feel bad putting that on someone else, like me like being that overbearing, but also probably just I didn't think that was like conducive. But anyways, um but sometimes, especially if you have all this experience, you should be able to hire a team and trust that she literally wanted this to be a one woman show. All that she said to me, and I don't know because I'm not that experienced. I've not been in Hollywood, so I could be very wrong in this. But all of this sounds too much for a producer. It sounds too much to me. When I remember reading, let me actually pull up the PGA mark, um, like what you need to prove or whatever for the PGA mark. Um, right. So this was from my other the film hierarchy video. This was I was really proud of this presentation because I actually put a presentation together. Ba, ba, ba. Was it this? Oh, this is produced by, so okay, Producer's Mark certification standard. Um, so this is like required. Actor demonstrated that they personally made regular, continuous, and substantial decisions regarding production, budgetary, and legal concerns in a constructive and responsible manner. I would highly argue that it was not constructive at times based on just facts that we've seen, but allegedly. And responsible, that's more subjective, but I would argue against that too. I don't know. But um, the actor personally was involved in the project prior to all other producers. She wasn't, but okay. Created, identified, or secured the intellectual property on which the project was based? No. Secured the director, writer, or financing before the film was greenlit or a majority of the financing was obtained? No. Or resurrected an otherwise stagnant project or significantly reimagined the script or production before the film was greenlit or the financing was obtained. It wasn't before it was greenlit, but she definitely like reimagined and created again the problem of a stagnant project of like, oh, this director was inadequate, blah 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 blah. And I just remembered it was in the Ben letter to Ben, that she talked about, I think, Matt Damon getting the PGA mark lead and blah, I don't know. Actor personally rendered substantial creative contributions to pre-production and production that are beyond those typical of an actor. Actor personally rendered substantial creative contributions to post-production that are beyond those typical of an actor. And then this is the right to rescind because it can be rescinded. Produce, so it's like misrepresentation or omission of material information or material interference with third party fact gathering. So I think like technically she did these things, like they happened, so it can't be like it can't be that, like, oh, she didn't actually do what she said she did. But there's here like obstructing access to the PGA to such by the PGA to such party, coaching, coercing, or improperly influencing a third party to manipulate the outcome of any eligibility determination. So like I think like it's not exactly likely that she will, you know, get this rescinded. I have to go back. Where is it? Where am I? But yeah, I don't know. It definitely should be something coercion or something. I don't know. I would love to hear the music just inside would put yeah, in the movie. Yeah, they had, I believe they had finished the whole score of the movie and then she just scratched that and just redid it. I think she took credit for things that she didn't really do. That's also possible. I think she did these, but like she, from what we've seen, it was more like she created the problem and then like introduced a solution, but there was no problem to begin with. Or like, yeah, I don't know. At least like for most of it. I hope she gets her PGA rescinded. Yeah, that would be great. Again, I don't think it's likely at this point. They've not really said anything and they've seen like a bunch of stuff, but they probably don't care. They're like, whatever, she gets it. She gets the mark. Who cares? No big deal. Moving on. I peeked a couple of days ago and not many are signing that thing to rescind. Yeah. Um, okay, so she went to LA to mix in person. Blah. I've been on Zoom again for the CAS ADR sessions. Okay, Blake, a little typo again. I've been working on the VFX, overseeing every shot that makes it into the film. So now she's into visual effects too. I've been working with the graphics team, helping to choose and shape the fonts of the title and credits. This is another one that got to me that I'm like, okay, like down to the font of the title and credits, which we know she wanted Justin's name off. So that's what she's probably talking about. I worked with Legal, the studio and distributor, on credits and cards. I appealed to Columbia Pictures to grant Isabella Ferrer the introducing card, marking only the sixth time they've granted that title in their 100-year history. My sound will change also because my my headphones like are dying. But like, call me stupid. Let me see.